and I would really appreciate it if you would stop Rob Taylor from blathering on and on.
Opinions expressed by talk show hosts, callers, or guests on the Rob Taylor Report do not necessarily represent the opinions of the hosting platform, subsidiaries, sponsors, or possibly anyone else on the planet or the known universe. From the tinfoil and lead-lined broadcast bunker on the beautiful southern coast of Oregon, it's the Rob Taylor Report. So strap yourself in. Your weekly political therapy session is about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is, the nearly famous Rob Taylor.
Thank you, Tammy. Hello, Oregon. Hello, America. And thank you to everyone who is joining me today. And as you probably know, it's St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's. And people often wonder why should Americans care about this Irish holiday? Well, let me tell you, it's more than just about the little country of Ireland. Yes, it's quite a bit more about the little country of Ireland, because the little country of Ireland has a lot of little breeding rabbits on there. They're called the Irish people. I know, because I am one of those Irish people. And my family, boy, there are towns in New York where we just all call each other cousins because there's so damn many of us. And so it's more than just a holiday that's celebrated by the Catholics. It's St. Patrick's Day, not St. Patty's Day. I don't like it when people try to shorten it, because Patty is actually used to be used for a word that was derogatory towards the Irish. I don't care. You can call me a Patty. I don't care. In fact, that's where the term paddy wagon came from. Paddy wagon was the derogatory term because of all of us drunken Irish who they'd have to throw into the clink every now and then, and those dirty rotten screws in the clink, they'd have to take us there on the paddy wagon. And so the reason that I'm talking about this is because this is huge. This is huge, and I don't think people really understand St. Patrick's Day. People, like I said, pretty much think it's an Irish holiday, but in fact, I would argue, and many historians have, that, and I'm certainly not a historian, but I'm just someone who's making that argument, is that St. Patrick's was one of the people who helped spread Western culture, Western civilization. He civilized Ireland. He didn't just drive out the snakes of Ireland. And I don't know how familiar you are with the story of St. Patrick. St. Patrick, he was around in the 5th century. Maybe even the late 4th century. They're not even sure at what point in time he was in Ireland. But the story goes is that he was kidnapped as a teenager. I believe it was when he was a young teenager, and he was held by the Druids. Of all people, the Druids. Yes, Irish pirates, which if there was a former life, I truly believe I was an Irish pirate. But those damn Irish pirates kidnapped St. Patrick, and he wasn't a saint at the time. He was just Patrick. And Patrick was kidnapped, and he was taken off into the hills of Ireland and by those Irish pirates and sold into slavery to the Druids. And I often tell people, I'm a tree hugger. It's not because I'm an environmentalist. It's just because I love trees. And maybe it's because of my Druid background, being ancestrally related to the Druids and the Celts. Patrick was kidnapped by the Druids, and so he learned about their pagan religions, and he was a sheep herder. He was forced to herd sheep, as the story goes. And at some point in time, he was able to escape Ireland and go back to Britain, and he went into the service of the church, and he was going to spread Christianity throughout the world. And one of the first stops that St. Patrick made was in Ireland. He went back to Ireland when he was about 40, from what I understand it. And the reason he went there was to convert all of those filthy, rotten Irish savages, those Celtic and Druid savages, and they were truly savages. You read the history of the Celts, and I have no problem saying that because I am descendant of these savage people, the Celtics. And yes, they had a culture. In fact, it was kind of a beautiful culture. They had a religion, but they also liked to cut off the heads of their enemies and drink blood out of their skulls. Yeah, they had some really weird, and they would actually use the skull of their enemy to decorate their houses. Sometimes they would wear the skull of their enemy and other body parts that they had garnered in battle. And so the Druids and the Celtics, they were some of the worst pagans. And to be quite honest with you, I'm proud of that. So, I mean, if you're going to come from a badass group, come from a badass group. And the Celtics, and I don't know why I say I'm proud of it, like I had anything to do with it, but it makes me happy that I come from a lineage of wild-haired, wild-eyed fighting savages known as the Celts. That's just something that I have felt a long time inside me. I could very well fit into fifth century Ireland very well. I'd be more than happy to fight the Romans. But St. Patrick converted these savages into Christians. Catholicism was the reigning sect of the day, and the Catholics, the Catholic Church, sent out many of these bishops and preachers to spread this Christianity. And so he converted the Druids and he converted the Celts, which in turn, when those Druids and Celts became what is known as Ireland, the Irish people, they immigrated or were forced or were enslaved and moved out of Ireland to all over the world. And some of those places were here in America. My family, like I said, upstate New York, that's where many of my family landed in the late 1700s. And the Irish are known for being spread out through the world. We are known for, not only because we're Catholic, we're known for breeding a lot of children. Irish families are known for being large, for being big families. And to this day, my sister has 5 kids. It just blows my mind. And that's half of the kids that my grandparents had. And so it's mind boggling, but that was important to Western culture because that was how Christianity spread and Western civilization spread. And it was due to this one man, St. Patrick, as you can see on the screen there, who decided to take on the savages, the Celtic savages, the Celtic and the Druid savages that lived in Ireland. And, it's something that, I'm not worried. I don't call St. Patrick a colonizer. I don't call him, I didn't say that he was committing genocide because they didn't commit genocide. They just converted people. It's a difference. And so we owe a lot to St. Patrick. Very, very important. I have to tell that every day every St. Patrick's Day, because most people don't know the history of St. Patrick. They just think he's the guy who drove snakes out of Ireland. I got news for you. I don't think there were ever snakes in Ireland. And the snakes that are there now, they just are called politicians. So that's why I have to make sure that when events like this, when my show airs on holidays like this, St. Patrick's Day, I want you to know a little bit more about the reasons we celebrate this and the reasons that we celebrate the green. And part of the reason is, if you can see this picture, he has a 3-leaf clover, and he used to tell the story talking about the 3-leaf clover and the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And it's something that, it's part of my heritage, but it's something bigger than just part of the Irish heritage. It's part of the American heritage, because the Irish did an incredible amount of work in helping him build this country. I mean, they didn't do, I don't want to say the Irish built the nation. It took a lot of ethnicities to build this nation, but the Irish did do their part to build this nation. And so we need to celebrate and appreciate those things and appreciate those holidays. And you can't do that unless you know the story behind many of the people that we celebrate. So that was my little holiday greetings I wanted to talk about today. I always try to do that on my show. And what I really want to get back to and talk about because I was talking about this on my last couple of shows, is that right now, let me see if I can get this up there. Add it to the stage. Where is it? There you go. Let's remove that. And then let's add this to the stage. The Oregon State Legislature right now, and we're going to go to this right now. There is a meeting occurring. There is a public hearing that is occurring. And I want to show you how to get to these public hearings. If you notice this website, the Oregon State Legislature, Oregon Legislative Information, right there gives you the date of the session. Right down here, it gives you the bill number. And that bill number is a link. You can click that link. And well, not that link. Let me show you. You can go down further and go to scheduled events. Can you see that? Let me make sure you guys can see that. Okay. All right. You guys can see that. So you want to go to scheduled events because there's wow, the scheduled event, public hearing. Yeah, 317. Here it is. Here we go. You click the public hearing, and then it'll give you the measure details and all that good stuff. There is a proposed amendment. The proposed amendment is going to add more regulation to the bill, and maybe they'll talk about it at the meeting, but there is a video. Now, you see this on the right-hand side. It'll give you the date of the meeting. This one here, it even has HB 3075, started at 3 o'clock. And then you see this live content. Click that, and let's see if we can pull this up. All right, this is the
required for these transfers is July 1st, 2026. So in sections 6, 7, 8, and 9, that date has been inserted in, so it's clear that until that date, permits are not required. But I will point out that another change from Measure 114 is that there's no such thing anymore as default transfers, meaning if the background check doesn't come back in a certain amount of time. Prior to 114, you used to be able to still transfer the firearm after a certain number of days. Measure 114 prohibited that and stated that the approval number has to come back. That is maintained in this measure, and that is not postponed until July 1st, 2026. Moving on to the amendment. The amendment, basically, there's a small fix on page 11 that's really a drafting error where unfinished frame or receiver is being inserted after firearm, because for gun dealers, unfinished frames or receivers, the sales are regulated the same as firearms. But the amendment really kicks off with an amendment to the section 11 of ballot measure 114, which is the large capacity magazine section. The amendment mostly tracks the language of the bill. It cleans up some errors. It reorganizes some provisions so it's clear what applies to what, and just makes it a little more clear, specifically with the affirmative defense. But the main thing I want to point out here is that throughout section 11, which is the large capacity magazine section, you see this date, December 8th, 2022. That is an editorial substitution that our office performs because that is the date that Measure 114 went into effect statutorily. So on December 8th, 2022, it became statutory law, even though the enforcement was enjoined by a court beforehand. The problem with Section 11 is that the grace period that dealers and manufacturers have with respect to the large capacity magazine ban was tied to that date, December 8th, 2022. So the way that this amendment deals with that is it pulls out that 180-day grace period that ballot measure 114 had, basically for gun dealers to dispose of their inventory, manufacturers to continue to manufacture pursuant to a contract that they had already entered into. And it puts it into new section 11A. New section 11A basically says that if an injunction that has enjoined the enforcement of the ballot measure is overturned, reversed, vacated, for that 180 days after, there is this exact same grace period. The language was just pulled out of section 11 and put in here so that gun dealers and manufacturers can continue to have that grace period beginning from when the ballot measure does actually go into effect. And I think you're going to hear from Department of Justice as to when that might happen. So I won't go into that. The other thing that is in section 11A that's definitely worth pointing out is subsection 1 says that a person cannot be prosecuted for conduct prohibited by the large capacity magazine ban of Measure 11, or sorry, excuse me, Measure 114 that occurred while the enforcement of the ballot measure was enjoined. It was surprisingly hard to find information as to whether or not this was possible. I don't think it commonly happens that people are prosecuted for conduct that occurs while something is enjoined. But there's not a specific precedent that I could find that said that it was absolutely prohibited. Now, you would have a lot of arguments as to why you shouldn't be prosecuted, but
you shouldn't have retro laws. That's number one.
That says that the person just cannot be prosecuted for conduct that occurs while Measure 114 was enjoined. That said, the affirmative defense for the possession and use of a large capacity magazine is still tied to that December 8th, 2022 date. So you have an affirmative defense if you possessed the large capacity magazine before that December date, or you acquired it due to an inheritance, and you have maintained it in your possession for since then in certain ways.
And how are you supposed to prove that, huh?
Basically, if this goes into effect and you want to assert that affirmative defense, you still do have to prove that you owned or possessed the large capacity magazine prior to December 8th.
And how do you do that? How do you prove it?
Oh, and I should also point out something, that even though your conduct occurring while Measure 114 was enjoined would not be prosecutable, literally as soon as this would go back into effect the next day, basically your conduct could be prosecuted. So if you possess that large capacity magazine, if you acquired it while this is enjoined and it goes into effect, you could potentially be prosecuted the day that it goes into effect.
But I'm sorry,
Of course, nobody else will get prosecuted, just the gun owners.
180-day grace period based on date that it goes into effect.
Chair Krupp, the 180-day grace period was for gun dealers and
Gotcha,
manufacturers, and that is tied to the date that basically the injunction is reversed. It is possible to draft something that would tie the affirmative defense to the date that the law goes into effect, but it would be a little bit more difficult.
It's
the
difficult
rest of
to
the amendment
protect
is
people's rights,
just repeating amendments to those 4 transfer sections. So the gun dealer, gun show, private transfer, and pulling out the July 1st, 2026 date, so that thereafter a permit will be required for any transfer occurring after that date. And then at the end of the amendment, we just have not really many changes from the introduced bill, but I would just point out a few things. Any challenges to the legality of the bill would have to be commenced in the Circuit Court for Marion County, and there is an emergency clause on the bill. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Because they're a liberal court, that's why.
Members, I think what I'll do is I'll encourage written questions to Ms. Menifee, and maybe the testimony today from the public will help. We'll put some other questions, and we will have Ms. Menifee back at some other point if there are a bunch of questions. With that, thank you, Jessica, for being here. And we'll hear next from Robert. Robert, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Kropp and members of the committee. My name is Robert Koch. I'm from Bend, and I'm here today on behalf of the Oregon Department of Justice to give an update on the status of the litigation against ballot measure 114. Voters enacted measure 114 in the 2022 general election, but a state trial court has enjoined enforcement of the law since before the measure could take effect. Last week, however, the Oregon Court of Appeals reversed the trial court's injunction. In short, the Court of Appeals held that Measure 114 is facially constitutional under the Oregon Constitution. Given that decision, the natural follow-up question is, when will the law go into effect as it's currently written? And the answer is that it depends. The decision by the Court of Appeals becomes final only when the court issues what's called an appellate judgment that officially sends the case back to the trial court. At a minimum, appellate procedural rules give the losing party 35 days to petition for further review from the Oregon Supreme Court. So the earliest that the law could go into effect is approximately 1 month from now, and only if the challengers do not file a petition for further review. Here, the challengers to the law have stated publicly that they intend to file such a petition for review. And if they do so,
I
then the
guarantee
next
we'll
steps
file.
depend on the Oregon Supreme Court. If the court ultimately denies the request to take the case, it's up to the Supreme Court whether they want to take the case. And if they deny the request, then appellate procedural rules give 28 days for the losing party to seek reconsideration of that denial, after which the appellate judgment would issue. That entire process from petition to denial typically takes in the ballpark of 3 to 6 months, but it can always be quicker or slower. If the Supreme Court agrees to take the case, then that would kick off an entirely new, a fresh round of briefing, oral argument, and waiting for a decision. And that process can take 1 to 2 years. Similarly, it can be quicker or slower, but we'd be talking years rather than a few months. I also want to note that separately, there is federal litigation ongoing, but the federal litigation is not currently an impediment to the law going into effect. The state prevailed on the federal constitutional challenge before the federal district court, and that case is currently on appeal to the Ninth Circuit. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions about timing.
Members, any quick questions? Quickly, Representative Anderson?
Thank you, Chair. So what is the status right now of the, with the Court of Appeals overturning the circuit court? That's valid law for the future for what they've said.
It is, but the Court of Appeals decision becomes final when the court issues an appellate judgment, and that takes at least 35 days from the date of the decision.
I understand that. I say if it is appealed to the Supremes, the Court of Appeals decision is valid until it's overturned or affirmed by the Supreme Court.
Okay. That's correct, but it doesn't. But the Court of Appeals decision takes effect only after that process has run.
Okay. Great. Robert, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for walking us through that.
Thank you.
The first panel we'll hear from is Senator Reynolds, Liz McKenna, and Dr. Daniel Webster. The folks after that will be Derek LeBlanc, Matthew Warren, and Kai Dino.
I hope you all put in your testimony because you can still testify, and I'll show you that a little bit later.
Protect the microphone from further. Thank you. What an honor to be here with Ms. McKenna. Chair Kropp, Vice Chairs Wallen and Tilton, members of the House Committee on Judiciary. I'm Lisa Reynolds, State Senator serving West Portland, Cathedral Park, and Northeast Washington County. I also work as a
Take off your
serving
mask,
children and
lady.
families in my district.
Take off your
Leon.
mask.
Following the federal decision that found Measure 114 constitutional in the summer of 2023, my office began a work group to understand what was needed to implement this measure properly. I want to reinforce and reiterate to you all that the voters brought Measure 114, thank you, and they made a law, right? It has been held up by courts at the state and federal level, and as such, the legislature must support an effective implementation process. So this, I just want to describe what the what we're looking at in terms of what the legislature can and should do to ensure the voters will, right? This is the role of the legislature here. So as such, my office convened the Oregon State Police, the Sheriff's Association, and the Oregon Department of Justice. And our group brought forward key questions, some of which this legislation works to address. I should say the amendments. First of all, what resources or technical changes do state law enforcement need to issue permits? In particular, what is needed to move to this more effective and reliable form of background checks, which requires fingerprinting? Also, how do we ensure individual privacy is protected in the permitting process? And who can qualify as a firearm safety instructor, and how will this process work? Also, how can we make it easier for individuals in large rural counties to apply for a permit and to reduce any burdens for applying for the permit? what data needs to be collected to ensure equitable implementation. And we know that Oregon State Police has a historic backlog for background checks, which they have done an impressive job of improving over the past years with funding and with efficiencies. What additional resources does Oregon State Police need to increase the return time for background checks? We also know we need information and how to ensure that the public receives what they need to know on permitting once Measure 114 is in effect. We heard from the Sheriff's Association and the Oregon State Police that their teams were working hard to be ready to implement Measure 114. In fact, one of the officers won an award from their team for their early efforts to support this implementation. I certainly recommend, I will close now. Thank you. Happy to be. That's a nice gentleman.
Hi, I'm Liz McKenna. I'm here on behalf of Lift Every Voice Oregon, and we're testifying in support of HB 3075-1. We ask that it be voted out of this committee and submitted to the full chamber as soon as possible. I've been a volunteer with Lift Every Voice for 7 years, the entire existence of the organization, and I've spent most of it's been full-time or more, I think. But in any event, I was involved with Measure 114 from the beginning, drafting, collecting signatures, and all the way through of it being passed, and then all through the appeals. And I can tell you, we're very eager, obviously, to have it put in place. It's time to see what it can do. We've been telling you what it can do for years. We support the amendments that are in the -1 proposal for several reasons, but partly because it has been a collaborative process. I was in the committees dealing with Senate Bill 348, and all those same groups were together and working together. And we didn't always agree, but a lot of the changes in this are actually ones that were proposed during that time. They're good practical changes. And I think that collaborative process, that working together, will make it likely to be successful and in implementation. And that's really what we're looking for. We think this amendment brings about smooth and easier implementation. Another reason that we support it is that we think we should try, to the full extent possible, to support the voters' intent. And that's what we've approached this process, keeping that in mind. And we do think that these amendments do continue the voters' intent, which is basically to reduce gun violence with two provisions, and just two provisions: permits to purchase and banning large capacity magazines. And we should be just dealing with those and moving forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Doctor?
Hi, I'm Daniel Webster, professor of health policy at Johns Hopkins University and distinguished scholar with our Center for Gun Violence Solutions. Our center conducts rigorous scientific research to assess the effectiveness of strategies to curb all forms of gun violence. When the evidence indicates a strategy will save lives, we advocate for its adoption, and that's the case here with HB 3075. Research I've done with my colleagues that we've conducted shows firearm purchaser licensing laws reduce virtually all forms of gun violence, and that's why we support the bill. For example, Connecticut adopted a similar law in 1995, and we found it led to large reductions in gun homicides, suicides, and shootings of law enforcement officers.
Oh, that's
when
not
we
quite
project
true.
the same kind of effects to the same demographic strata for Oregon, we estimate over a decade that would lead to more than 1,000 lives saved. A key reason that these laws are particularly effective is that they allow more time to conduct background checks, which allows them to check more databases across federal, state, and local
Deny
sources,
more
because
people
many
their
of the
rights,
records
right.
take time to get in, and it takes time for this process to occur. When states do all of those things, meaning check all of those databases, they have lower rates of gun homicides and suicides. Finally, the FBI finds that the denials for background checks with licensing systems identify about 3% of applicants who are denied compared to 1.8%. That translates into thousands of people who should be denied that don't get denied because they don't have rigorous background checks that licensing systems allow.
Doctor, thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Derek, Matthew, and Kai, if you want to come up, and following them will be Amy Wexler, Talia Wexler, and Amy Long. Welcome. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Hello, my name is Derek LeBlanc. I'm from Eugene, and I wanted to be here to speak on behalf of Oregon gun owners and our disapproval for this, what's happening right now on House Bill 3075 as it's amended. I too have been part of the Measure 114 debate all throughout this whole process. And I remember one thing we did, we had a hearing the other day up here, and it was very emotional, one-sided based, and it didn't cover the facts. And the facts are part of what we're talking about today. There's no actual fiscal impact statement that's related to House Bill 3075 as it's amended. And so we don't know what this unfunded mandate is going to be passed upon all of us as gun owners, as Oregon taxpayers, and that's something that I think needs to be addressed. So part of the process is during Measure 114, the original cost of the permit was $65. Okay, the estimated cost just to implement Measure 114 was $50 million the first year, and then $48 million to ongoing, and that's what's due, and the state would be responsible just to keep Measure 114 in place. So now we're stepped to House Bill 3075. Now that payment is ballooned to over $100 now for that permit to purchase. So what that's telling me is we don't have the funds to actually implement this law as it's been amended, and so this is where this bill affects people of color, our lower socioeconomic single mothers. This puts undue hardship on them for them to be able to purchase a firearm so they have something that can protect themselves and their families. So I definitely do not recommend that this pass out of this committee without going to Ways and Means. Thank you.
Chair, my name is Matthew Warren. I'm from Portland, Oregon. I think that I here to oppose this House Bill 3075. I have dubbed this personally the Blood Moon Bill because of the timing of this bill has come out.
And he's
I
from
oppose
Portland,
this bill on
guys.
grounds that I see how this impacts on people. I'll let other people speak to the legality of what it is. The greatest individual, the greatest minority is the individual. And I'm here to speak as an individual against this bill because I think that it takes away the rights of Americans, rights of Oregonians to be able to purchase a firearm, to be able to protect themselves. And I think this is the greatest tragedy that this has upon individuals. I see the future this takes where the ultimate is in the control over the individual and the control over their ability to be able to protect themselves. And this is the grounds to which I oppose this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
This one. Hi. Hello, members of the committee. My name is Kai Deno. I'm a Portland resident. As a lifelong Pacific Northwest resident, I have seen my region go from embracing the American ideal of live and let live to embracing the ideology of rules for thee, not for me. We used to pride ourselves on dedication to personal autonomy and freedom. Since my home state of Washington has passed firearms legislation similar to Measure 114 in House Bill 3075, the state has seen an increase of violent crime and homicide in the 2 to 3 years, depending on how you measure it, since they first passed a mag ban and then an assault weapons ban and then a safety requirement. Article 1, Section 27 of the Oregon Constitution reads, "The people shall have the right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state, but the military shall be kept in strict subordination to the civil power." This bill purposefully attempts to circumvent our Constitution with out-of-state partisan lawfare. People want more freedoms, not less, especially in the beautiful state of Oregon. Nothing in Measure 114 or House Bill 3075 will curb gun violence, gun suicides, as it hasn't in Washington. It will only create a purposefully obtuse and expensive barrier between Oregonians and their constitutional freedoms. The funding of bills like these comes from out-of-state billionaires who do not represent the spirit or the people of Oregon or our constitutional freedoms. You all have the opportunity to reject these unconstitutional restrictions that were purposefully obscured to confuse voters to support. I think most Oregonians who voted for this feel like they voted for a background check system, which we already have. If you are a felon or have a violent misdemeanor, you cannot buy a gun in Oregon already. So I'm asking you to do your part to reject this bill, reject Measure 114, and keep our rights in place. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. So Amy and Talia and Amy, if you can come on up.
That
and the
last
next
guy was a really
people up
good
here, this will
guy.
be
He
Kenny
does a
Yao,
lot of
Brock
work
Beard,
in
and
Portland.
Representative
Very
Swallows.
important man there. And he's a young man. Glad he's on the team.
Great.
Hi, my name is Amy Wexler, and I'm the state lead for the largest grassroots gun violence prevention organization in Oregon, Moms Demand Action. I have been involved in this movement since 2015, and I have testified in front of this committee numerous times. I will be back to testify again this legislative session, and I appreciate you taking the time to take my testimony today. And more importantly, I appreciate you taking action to protect Oregonians from gun violence. In 2022, Moms Demand Action volunteers joined forces with other gun violence prevention groups in the state to pass Measure 114. We knew that Oregonians wanted to see bold action, and they were willing to take the necessary steps to ensure that their families were protected from the unpredictable violence of mass shootings. 2022 was the year of the Uvalde shooting and the shooter at the Bend Safeway. Of course, these are only two of the thousands of examples of gun violence that plague our country each year. But the prominence of these shootings, either nationally or in our state, helped fuel the support for Measure 114. We are now grateful that the Oregon Court of Appeals has determined that Measure 114 can move forward. To ensure this is done with speed, efficiency, and in the best manner possible, the legislature needs to act this session. The will of the voters has been delayed long enough. I ask that you help the state implement a permit to purchase program by supporting HB 3075 and the -1 amendments. Oregonians already spoke at the ballot box. They want this policy to be a reality. Please do what is right and make this the first of many gun violence prevention measures that you pass this session. Thank you.
The first of many, because we just want to get rid of the second.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Chair Krupp, Vice Chairs Choatson and Wallen, thank you for taking my testimony today. My name is Talia Wexler. I'm a sophomore in college and currently home for spring vacation. I'm here to testify in support of this bill for a number of reasons. I got involved with Students Demand Action when I was in middle school. We are young people committed to ending gun violence in our communities. I have testified in front of the legislature many times over the years in support of common sense gun violence legislation. There's no better way to spend my school break than making sure this legislature knows that the next generation is counting on them to end the public health crisis that is gun violence in our country and take bold steps to protect Oregonians. At the time of the 2022 election, I was not yet able to vote as I was months away from turning 18, but I was able to support ballot measure 114 by educating others about its importance and the need for its reforms. I was so thrilled when it passed, and this past week I was relieved and grateful that the Oregon Court of Appeals finally had the opportunity to weigh in and state that it does not violate the Oregon Constitution. This means the time is now for you to take actions that the will of the voters can be implemented. Please pass House Bill 3075 so that the necessary funding, training, and personnel can be put into place to implement Measure 114. A permit to purchase system is needed to keep Oregonians safe. There is much before the legislature this session that can make my friends and I safer. This bill will allow us to feel safer going to sporting events, theaters, concerts, and grocery stores. The next generations of voters has your back and will remember you for taking brave steps to make sure we can live bright futures. Don't let us down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amy Long, and I live in the Montevilla neighborhood of Portland. I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action, and I'm here to testify in support of House Bill 3075, which would help implement provisions in ballot measure 114. I'm here today for two reasons. One, a 38-year-old family member, and the other, his 35-year-old brother, both dear to me. The older of the two is still with us today because when he tried to take his life 8 years ago, in the throes of a deep depression, he did not have access to a firearm. Today, he's happy and healthy, married with a full life ahead of him. His younger brother developed a drug addiction and, to pay for his habit, committed an armed robbery. He served 7 years and, after being released, was found in possession of a firearm again and incarcerated again. Today, he's struggling to put his life back together, and I can't help but wonder how different it might be if he too had not had access to those firearms. We owe it to our fellow Oregonians to do our best to ensure that that the purchasers of firearms are well trained, well vetted, and not a danger to themselves or others. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative and Candy and Brock. The
How
next
do
panel
you
will be
prove
Penny
that?
Moto,
How do you
Alexa
prove any of
Hasman, and
that?
Cecilia Thrasher.
Aye,
We have Candy Yao or Brock Bearden.
And you do know that these are stacked testimonies. They put the people
Do we
who
have Ms.
are
Klein
for the
here?
bill up first. You notice that. There are going to be
Or
more of them.
Dylan Reichart. Come on up. Dylan, are you here? Or you're online, Dylan? Great. Representative, please. Sorry, I didn't see you.
Oh, you're good. Thank you, Chair. Appreciate it. So my name is Alex Scarlatos, House District 4. I just skimmed this bill about 30 minutes before coming down here. So I'm just going to rattle off a lot of the issues I see with it. First of all, the fee being $150, I believe discriminates against poor people who, you know, you try to buy a $300 firearm, it's now $450 in addition to a $10 background check. Poor people are statistically the ones most likely to use a firearm for self-defense. The proof of qualification also discriminates against older veterans with the 10-year prior to the application date for issuance of the permit. So I disagree with that. Next, there is no appeal, or there is no recourse when illegally denied except for appeal. So a law enforcement agency can deny people and not be held liable. And then, sorry, I got notes all over the place. A unique approval number is only valid for 24 hours. That sets a very unrealistic standard. If you apply, are not immediately approved, then the gun store receives approval right before they close. They're closed for the weekend. You now have to start the process all over again. And then 30-round magazines, limiting it to 10 rounds. I disagree with the definition of large capacity magazine on its face. It is a standard capacity magazine. Every firearm I own has a 30-round magazine. Defining them as large is just untrue. That is standard. If you want to ban those magazines, then call them what they are, at least refer to them as standard magazines. Also, the December 8th, 2022 date, as far as who would be punished by this. I mean, probably half the people in this room have bought magazines that are over 10 rounds since that date. And I would make everyone a Class A misdemeanor, including myself. And so obviously I disagree with that. And just in conclusion, I have a little bit more notes, but I survived a terrorist attack in a gun-free continent. The terrorist got a fully automatic AK-47 and a handgun. I know it's anecdotal, but these things, if you're going to commit mass murder, you're not going to worry about committing a Class A misdemeanor along the way. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Representative. Ms. Klein.
Avine Klein, State Director for the NRA, in strong opposition to House Bill 3075 and the -1 amendment. This bill is not what the voters just barely approved in 2022 with ballot measure 114. The increased fees, time period extension, and removal of the exceptions, among other egregious changes, are not the will of the voters. The bill demonstrates a clear disdain for the right to keep and bear arms. The gun control provisions of ballot measure 114 weren't enough, because for these proponents, it will never be enough gun control. The proponents are clinging to a questionable Court of Appeals reversal, but the litigation over 114 is far from settled. This -1 amendment is not the same regime that was considered by the Court of Appeals. Measure 114 and this bill will be unconstitutional under the Second Amendment and the Bruin analysis. The NRA-backed lawsuit over 114 is currently pending in the Ninth Circuit Federal Court. The question remains that if this is geared exclusively towards public safety, Why won't state and local officers be responsible for any harm that results? Everyone else who violates these laws will be exposed to criminal liability. This bill and 114 create a registry of gun owners and guns in Oregon in direct defiance of federal law. Finally, the venue limitations of this bill create a dangerous precedent of forum shopping and specific outcome. State courts are the final arbiters of state laws and state constitutions, but not the federal Constitution and the Second Amendment. This bill isn't about common sense, and it's not about public safety. It's about gun control and will have no effect on crime. Despite all the gun control laws passed in Oregon over the past decade, Oregon has only become more dangerous. I urge your opposition to this bill and the -1 amendment.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Dylan, do we have you with us?
At least the NRA was there. That was good.
Dylan, are you with us? Do we have Michael Fuller with us? Michael, are you with us remotely?
Jeff, you're right. It's going to be huge cost to the taxpayers of
Do we
this
have
state.
Timmy Christensen?
Violate our rights. You're right, Jeff. I have
We
to
have
keep
Thomas
interjecting
Crumley.
because these people, somebody
Thomas, you with us?
needs to put commentary on some of this crap.
Do we have William Copeland with us? William, are you with us? I'm going to move on to the next panel. Thank you both for being here. Penny, Alexa, and Cecilia. And after that, we will call Ronnie Daniels, Taryn Weingant, and Daniel Medina.
Oh, good. Ronnie Daniels. Yes, Ronnie Daniels is going to serve up a heaping helping of humility for these people. You watch. He'll be coming on here in a minute. Ronnie's
Hello,
great.
my name is Alexa Hassman, and I am the Portland lead for Moms Demand Action and a member of Everytown Survivor Network. I'm here to testify on behalf of House Bill 3075. 2 years ago, almost to the day, my brother was shot in a drive-by shooting while he was on the freeway in the back of an Uber. I think we can all imagine ourselves trying to get back home in the backs of our Ubers, and on that fateful day, my brother and my family's life was changed forever. The prevalence of gun violence in this state and in this nation is something that House Bill 3075 can make a huge difference in decreasing. Permit to purchase laws in other states led to an 11% decrease in gun homicides in urban counties. Oregon voters already passed this life-saving policy. It's time to start feeling those benefits. I'm asking for your support today so no other family has to deal with the tragedy we experienced on that day. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Today, I'm addressing issues for HB 3705-1. I'm Penny Okamoto. I represent Ceasefire Oregon. I'm here in support of HB 3075-1. I've been working on this issue for 25 years at the state and federal level. Ceasefire Oregon supports 3075-1, and we urge implementation of Measure 114 as soon as allowed by the courts. Today, I'm addressing the issue of fingerprint requirements for background checks and the need for permit to purchase process in addition to background checks when a person acquires a firearm. We've heard from Daniel Webster, so I'll just quickly go over some of the information, but he's already covered most of it. Firearm permit to purchase programs are more effective at reducing gun violence than standard background checks alone because they introduce additional safeguards that help prevent high-risk individuals from acquiring firearms. A Tufts University School of Medicine study published in August of 2024 states that reports that states that require permits rather than relying solely on universal background checks see firearm homicide rates on average 18% lower than
John
states with
Lott
background check
dispels
policies alone.
all of these
There's a stronger
statistics.
screening
Go
process
see
that
John
includes
Lott, lady.
in-person applications at law enforcement agencies, fingerprinting, longer waiting periods, making it more difficult for individuals to obtain firearms when those people should not be obtaining firearms. Reductions in firearm homicide. There's also prevention of firearm diversion and trafficking. A study found that states with permit to purchase laws have significantly lower rates of guns being diverted to criminals shortly after purchase. That's from Webster in 2009, injury prevention. It also has an impact on suicide prevention. In the state of Oregon, at least 80% of all gun death is suicide.
Oregon is pro-suicide, Penny.
Connecticut's law
We
led to a
assist
15% reduction in firearm suicides. Missouri's repeal of a permit to purchase law resulted in a 16% increase in suicides. We also have stronger compliance and enforcement with permit to purchase. By requiring permits before purchasing firearms, permit to purchase laws create more oversight and accountability. I urge you to support 3075-1. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have Cecilia Thrasher with us? Great.
We'll talk about Penny a little bit after this stuff, because Penny is someone who I've been battling with for a long time since I moved here. She's been wanting to take away our guns. She's been wanted to take away our guns for a long time. Here's Ronnie. Ronnie is good.
For the others. My Native American friends, my blood. Ronnie Daniels, Polk County, Sheridan, Oregon. Thank you, Chair, and everybody else here. I'm gonna give you a little history lesson. This bill here is sneaker than a rat that came out of a coon's bum. First of all, why did y'all, when you had experts on one side come up last week, how about getting some experts from the other side to address this issue? That's more like segregation in my belief. This bill, in my eyesight, is taking us back to the Jim Crow mentality of the 1920s, 19-teens, or even the time period when my father flew 124 missions and went back home to Birmingham, Alabama, and was denied his rights. And he moved his family to Texas while he went back to Austria and cleaned up the Holocaust and did the lift in 46. This bill is basically illegal, in my opinion. Even when you look at the Magna Carta, the English Bill of Rights, the Grand Remonstrance, or even Lee's resolution prior to the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. To make a long story short, you're putting me back in LA when they tried this same act under Gus Hawkins, who was my city councilor north side of Los Angeles in 1972. Let me give you the results. By the summer of 1972, which was July, right after Independence Day, this stuff, I watch a person at 6 years old get his head shot off, reloaded by a gang member. Crime went off the chart. Before you know it, we had the Hillside Strangler. Before you know it, here we had the freeway killer coming through California. It took 1978, they repealed it at the Supreme Court because the city of LA did not have the right to go through and take a right that's enabled to me by my creator and chase it around and just say, we got to get permission for this, permission for that. We are going down to the world of Hades, and you're going down to Mark's Road. Are you going to, Chairman, are you going to go down the road like Senator Daniel Patrick Monahan, which I consider you somewhat like, or are you going to go down the road like George Wallace? That's your choice.
Great. Thanks for being here.
Love that man. I love that man. That's a good man. Ronnie Daniels, an old
My name is Taryn Dar. I'm a proud
Great guy.
member of Women for Gun Rights and a single mother of 3 young children. My safety and my children's safety solely depends on me. That's why I'm here today in opposition of House Bill 3075. Thank you for having me. One of the most dangerous aspects of 114 is the permitting process just to apply to buy a firearm. It's costly, time-consuming, and for a woman and a single mother like me, it's a luxury that we might not always have. When we need protection, we need it now, not after waiting weeks or 60 days hoping we cut through the red tape. We've all heard the name Laken Riley. She did everything right. She went jogging on her college campus in a gun-free zone. In broad daylight, she called 911 and she fought back. It wasn't enough. She was brutally raped and her attacker killed her. Nobody came to save Laken Riley. So I ask you this, Representative Kropp, if I'm attacked, can you guarantee that a first responder will be there in time to defend me? Can you promise me that if my daughter is attacked, that there will be a first responder there to defend her? If you can't promise me that, then you have no right to take away my ability to defend myself and my 3 children. Women need access to firearms, not barriers that leave us defenseless. Can you show me somewhere in the Constitution where it says, shall not be infringed as long as you take a firearms training class, pay a $150 fee, or jump through enough hoops? You can't because it's not there. Our right to self-defense is carved into the Constitution, and it is your job to protect it, not strip it away from us. Restricting my ability to defend myself doesn't make me or my family any safer. It only ensures that when evil comes, I have no way to fight back. Thank you.
Thank you both for being here. David Medina, David, are you here? Right. So next we have James Diane and Sylvia, and after that,
That last lady was incredible. Her testimony. That was good. That was really needed. Appreciate that. I don't know who she is, but I appreciate her testimony.
please.
Yes. My name is Jim Jagger, retired from being a trial attorney for almost 50 years, Eugene, Oregon area. Brain still functions, and that's why I'm here, and thankful for that. And thank you for inviting so many people being here. I was one of the primary drafters of Measure 114 with Liz McCanna, here representing a number of groups, but I'm primarily here because of myself and because of Olaf Solberg. He is 3 days old, and he really here to celebrate him. All of us have grandchildren. We in this room have other people that we need to protect and related to.
I
His
can't
grandpa
protect him if
also
I'm
was
not
named
armed,
Olaf
sir.
Solberg. He was a urologist performing life-saving surgeries. He ran marathons, skied, healthy except for bipolar disease. Hereditary, highly likely little Olaf will have the same. He needs protection as with all of our family and grandchildren. Can Grandpa Olaf hold Olaf? No, because his bipolar caused a break in his mental health. He purchased a firearm with no life-saving Measure 114 protections, no forced pause to allow his family and law to go ahead and protect him or to intervene. He terminated his own life after purchasing a firearm 2 hours before. Just a reminder as to why we're here and why we worked so hard to get this particular measure. Legacy, that's another reason we're here, because we are today signing on or off with respect to life-saving matters. I have a 9mm Smith & Wesson a long time, so don't have problems with guns. But we need to step up and man up, woman up, and take choices that save lives. 3075 I support. I deal with words my whole life. It simply makes Measure 114 more effective and easier. Totally, completely support it, and hope that you will do also. Then we can look in the eyes of our children, our neighbors, our grandchildren, and say, you know something, we did the best we could to make your neighborhood safer. That's why I'm here. Appreciate you listening and hope you'll do the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Diane Peterson. I've been an advocate to prevent gun tragedies ever since 2015, when 9 Black people were massacred by a white supremacist after he sat with them for an hour in Bible study at church in Charleston, South Carolina. 2 months later, 2 journalists were shot and killed on live TV in my hometown of Moneta, Virginia. The person they were interviewing was shot and wounded but survived. She is the mother of a friend of mine from high school. At that time, I was 8 months pregnant with my first child. These events converged in me like a lightning rod, sparking my awareness that gun deaths and injuries were escalating in our communities and must be addressed. Since that time, I've consistently worked to raise awareness about the truth of gun tragedies, including these fundamental points. Gun deaths and injuries are a public health crisis, are preventable, and must be addressed by evidence-based policies. The mental and emotional trauma of survivors and all who have been impacted by gun tragedies is widespread and incalculable. Guns are now the leading cause of death for young people in the United States. This is unforgivable. Mass shootings traumatize our communities and make us live in fear, but most gun deaths are suicides. In Oregon, nearly 80% of gun deaths are suicides, with rates highest in rural areas and among veterans, and on the rise among youth. Black Americans are disproportionately impacted by gun deaths and injury. Black men in Oregon are 15 times more likely to die by gun homicide than white men. The evidence shows that strong gun laws save lives. This is especially important in states with high gun ownership. This issue is seen as divisive, but the reality is 70% of Oregonians agree with meaningful gun policies. So much of the division is because the gun lobby spreads false narratives designed to sell guns. If people really understood the key facts of Measure 114, like making sure there were completed background checks, most people would likely support it. We all want to live in communities where we feel safe. We must take action to make that a reality for all Oregonians. Measure 114 was voted into law by a majority of Oregonians in 2022, has been found constitutional in both state and federal court. Please support HB 3075. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Crow, Vice Chair Choatson, and Vice Chair Wallen, and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. My name is Sylvia Banks. I live in Albany, and I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action. I'm here to ask you to support HB 3075-1. I joined Moms Demand Action and became a passionate advocate for gun violence prevention following the death of my dear grandson, Michael. Michael died by suicide nearly 9 years ago at the age of 10, and the lives of all those who loved him have been changed forever. Michael was bright and caring and compassionate. He loved sports, especially baseball and basketball. In fact, the day before his death, he was awarded the team ball for his excellent performance in the baseball game. He also loved tractors. Nothing would ever lead anybody to believe that he would be a suicide risk. But he took his own life with a gun that was stored in the top shelf of his parents' closet. It was loaded and ready to protect his family from an intruder. But the real danger to the family came from that loaded gun, not from some unknown potential intruder. Nothing can bring back our sweet Michael, but I can lift my voice in the effort to prevent unnecessary gun deaths from happening in the future. I'm here today to ask you to support HB 3075 with the amendment. In 2022, I was among the majority of Oregon voters who voted for Measure 114 to enact a statewide requirement to get a permit to purchase a firearm. Research has shown similar laws in other states have reduced both homicide and suicide rates. So now that the constitutionality of the measure has been confirmed by the Oregon Court of Appeals, I just urge you to join me in supporting this bill. Thank you.
Lance, Mark, and Robert, and that panel will be followed by Rabbi Kahana, Carol Manstrom, and Alicia Snyder. Welcome.
I'm Mark.
That's Mark
Mark
Crosby,
first.
everyone. For all of you who don't know.
Yep, Mark, go ahead.
I'm Mark Cosby, 63-year resident, Lake County, Oregon. I'm against this bill. Same reason I'm drawn against every other bill. SB 554 would have thrown me in jail because on an icy night, I took a friend of mine to Portland to catch the plane ride out. I left my gun in my pickup and they were both stolen. A week later, I got my gun back, my pickup back. A month later, I got my gun back. The deal was the guy that was in possession of my gun was a felon in possession of a weapon who committed a crime. All he wanted to do was kill a guy. In the end, he used a pipe bomb. In the end, all that happened was he got 30 days probation. The taxpayers of Oregon paid for his court-appointed attorney. I have no faith in laws. I certainly have no faith in this law, and it will be deemed unconstitutional at some point, and it'll cost taxpayers a lot of money. It takes discernment to make sound law, and I have certainly no faith that that's been happening in recent years. I look at laws we have. Sanctuary state. What sanctuary state has given us is drug cartels running slave camps and killing more people on the streets of Oregon with fentanyl. And Jason, you and I have talked about that.
Yeah.
We're not doing anything to stop that crime, that heinous crime of slavery in Oregon. I will never relinquish my guns, and nor will a lot of other people. Thank you.
Mark, thanks for being here. We have Lance
neither,
or
Mark.
Robert with us.
I will never relinquish my guns. I don't care how many little old biddies they get up there in red shirts and tell sorry stories about their uncles who killed themselves. Yeah, I got family relatives who killed themselves too. Doesn't mean I should lose my rights because they were mentally defunct. Damn these people.
Volunteer.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committee. I'm Rabbi Michael Kahana, Congregation Beth Israel in Portland, one of the founding members of Lift Every Voice Oregon, and also one of the 3 chief petitioners of Measure 114, and with an equally unpronounceable name. So I'm with you on that. Thank you. I'm here to speak in favor of the Bill 3075-1. Lift Every Voice Oregon was founded by a group of religious leaders and others who felt motivated by a commandment to not stand idly by while our neighbors were bleeding. We have seen far too much gun violence in our state. And when we have the ability to make a difference, we have a responsibility to make a difference. Measure 114 is the law of the state. It is ruled constitutional, and it is time to implement it fully with the amendment that you have here. We have a responsibility to try to save lives. We found that people were excited about it. We had volunteers from all over the state and every county of the state who helped to pass this law. There was excitement, there's enthusiasm. There has been too long a sense that we can't do anything. We can only stand back in fear and hope that the gun violence doesn't come to us. We believe that Measure 114, which is proven to save lives in other states, will save lives here in our state, and we urge the passage of this measure. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Hello, Chair, Vice Chairs, and members. My name is Carol Manstrom. I'm retired from a 26-year career in law enforcement as a parole and probation officer. As a part of my job, I carried a gun. Also, I am a gun owner. But the Second Amendment does not absolve gun owners of careless, lax, unknowledgeable, or incompetent behavior with their guns. As a provision of Measure 114, gun purchasers will complete a basic firearms training course, which will include safe practices in the use, transportation, and storage of firearms. This is reasonable and common sense. As a parole and probation officer, the training that I completed for firearm training was called deadly force training. There's a reason why the word deadly is used. It is because guns are lethal.
Thank God.
During my firearms training, the overriding emphasis was safety. And I'm here today to share with all of you in a very personal and devastatingly difficult way how much firearm safety matters. In 2017, my teenage son, Will, who was a high school senior at that time, tragically died by firearm suicide. On the night that Will died, he was suffering from a severe mental health crisis, and there was a fully loaded, unsecured, and easily accessible handgun in the house where he was staying. Will's death is a fatal example of a basic firearm safety practice that was breached by the gun owner. Measure 114 will increase the knowledge, competency, and responsibility of persons who are purchasing a gun in Oregon. I'm respectfully requesting that you please pass House Bill 30751 to ensure that Measure 114 takes effect quickly and smoothly. As a final comment, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
And I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action. I live in unincorporated Clackamas County outside of Oregon City. I'm part of House District 51. My husband and I are currently attempting to renovate our 1970s treehouse on a a little over an acre, while we're also trying to raise 2 kids, and it's going very slow. But the reason I share these kind of random facts with you is because I want to help illustrate the diversity of those of us in this room who support this bill. We span many backgrounds, cultures, occupations, and genders. Some are from big cities, while others of us are from small towns. Some in our movement don't own a single firearm, while others own many. Despite our differences, the common thread that binds us together is the desire for our communities to be free from gun violence. As I'm sure most in this room are aware, Oregon has a devastatingly high rate of gun suicide, especially in our rural areas. The Oregon Health Authority found that Oregon's remote and rural counties have a higher suicide rate than the state as a whole. For example, Curry, Klamath, and Douglas counties have gun suicide rates that are more than double the rest of the state. Gun violence is not some faraway big city problem, it is everywhere. Gun violence impacts both rural and our urban communities. Measure 114 does several things, but one is requiring a permit to purchase system in Oregon. Permit to purchase laws have been shown to effectively reduce both gun homicides and gun suicides. In 2022, Oregonians voted for this. This is what we want. It is essential that we now do everything we can to make sure its implementation is as smooth and efficient as possible, which is why I'm asking you to support House Bill 3075. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Renee, Alicia, and Suzanne. Following them will be Mark Knutson, Emily Demurick, and Counselor Megan Perkins. Great. Welcome.
Thank you. Chairman Krupp, Vice Chair Whalen, my name is Suzanne Esch from Monmouth, Oregon, and I'm here to voice my opposition of 3075. As many have mentioned, this goes against the Oregon Constitution and federally against the Constitution. So what is the purpose of doing this when y'all know this is not constitutional? Who benefits from this? Certainly not law-abiding gun owners, because the criminals will still get guns. After all, they're criminals. They don't care about misdemeanors. They don't care about the law. They're the ones with the guns, not the law-abiding citizens. So who benefits? All the high-priced lawyers that our tax dollars are paying for? My understanding so far, it's $10 million of taxpayer funds going to high-priced attorneys to fight something they all know is unconstitutional and eventually will be overturned. Every
Damn
one of
right,
us should
lady.
be
Damn
asking
right.
why you're doing this. Because all I have seen from the legislative body for decades, you are taking this country and this state down. Look at our economy. Look at the safety. Look at the crime. Look at the fentanyl. Do you care about any of that? No, we waste time here on a very confusing bill, an amendment to another measure that I don't think Oregonians really understood what was really going on. So all of us need to be asking who benefits here, because it's certainly not the citizens of this state. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you for being here.
Damn right. Who's benefiting? Yeah, you know who.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Alicia Overstreet, and I am here to testify in opposition to HB 3075. No one is above the law. HB 3075 and its subsequent amendments is an attempt to circumvent the current judicial process. Further, this bill circumvents the civil commitment process by allowing an agent without the necessary background to make a unilateral and arbitrary determination on a person's dangerousness solely for the purpose of infringing on people's constitutionally protected right to protect themselves in the most effective and equitable manner possible. The bill has no racial and ethnic impact statement, which would show that it will have a disproportionate impact on Black people in Oregon. Voters might have approved Measure 114, but voters also approved the Black exclusion laws in Oregon. Permitting regimes have deeply racist roots. Reports have shown permitting schemes most negatively impact Black people. As an example, Rise Against Hate, a nonprofit, found that in New Jersey, Black people were 10 times more likely to be denied a permit compared to their white counterparts. It is necessary to understand that in the past, Black people were required to adhere to similarly blatant unconstitutional laws. Mississippi, Delaware, Louisiana, and others required slaves and freed Blacks to obtain a permit from their masters and police to exercise our constitutionally protected rights. Litmus tests are now disguised as safety and proficiency tests. Black people were commonly also required to prove our innocence as laws shifted the burden of proof from the state to us. Lastly, it is March 17, 2025. I am not a slave, and you are not my master. Therefore, I should not have to beg the state for permission to exercise my right as a free American.
Thank you both for being here. Is
That
Renee here?
lovely lady nailed it. Nailed it.
Well, there's Renee Bennett. Yeah, Baines. Welcome.
Renee Baines from Lincoln County. I represent over 100 people from Lincoln County who are sick and tired of our constitution and unalienable rights being squelched by unlawful and disobedient judges and legislators. As my shirt states, this is my gun permit. Expiration date, never. With the recent deaths in Lincoln County by homeless and those eluding our police, I take my safety and the safety of my friends and loved ones very serious. Thugs are lawless, gaining firearms illegally. No law will change that. Only enforcement of current laws can help give we, the people, the security we deserve. Removing our rights only allows the thugs to be empowered to slaughter as they see fit. I have every right to defend myself and my property. After all, I'm just a tiny old woman speaking for hilltop patriots throughout Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Emily, are you here? Come on up, and we're gonna hear from Councilor Perkins and Charlene McGee. After that, we'll hear from Timothy Cohen, Alex Burris, and Ricky Nelson. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Emily Dumerick, and I live in Northeast Portland. I am here supporting House Bill 3075. Oregonians voted for this bill in 2022. This measure will allow Measure 114 to go into effect as soon as possible and ensure a smooth implementation. I support this bill because it has been told by researchers that Measure 114 would save over 1,000 lives in a 10-year period. Inaction is measured in lives, and that is something that we must continue to work towards, ending lives lost. I come from a hunting and gun owning family. I grew up in gun culture and learned how to shoot firearms as a young child. I am not opposed to gun ownership and responsible ownership. Some of my best friends still own and operate a hunting and guiding business, and something that I deeply respect. I also have seen directly the impact of firearm suicides, including several of my high school classmates and a close personal friend of mine. These deaths have devastating impacts that last lifetimes. These deaths are preventable and are worth fighting to save. The policies in Measure 114 will give that critical time and space between a impulsive thought in a moment of crisis and the ability to access a lethal means. Too many stories include a very short time between a decision to end your life and the purchasing of a firearms in a very short period of time. And these measures would allow that time and space to occur. So I encourage you on behalf to support HB 3075. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Perkins. Do we have Megan Perkins with us? Charlene?
Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee, my name is Charlene McGee. I am a proud Oregon voter, a passionate advocate with Lift Every Voice, and most importantly, the mother to a 16-year-old. 26 years ago, I was high school senior when Columbine massacre shattered our lives and sense of safety. Today, my child faces the same fear, enduring active shooter drills, living with the constant threat of gun violence. This is unacceptable. I urge you to take swift action to fully implement Measure 114 and pass HB 3075-1. Oregon voters spoke clearly. 70% supported this measure. The evidence is undeniable. Stronger gun safety laws save lives. These policies work. They reduce homicide, they prevent suicide, they protect our children, our families, and our community. Measure 14 has been upheld as constitutional, yet its implementation continues to face unnecessary delays. We cannot afford inaction. Every moment wasted puts more lives at risk. As a mother, I want a future where my child, future grandchildren, you, your family, and I can live without the fear of gun violence. This measure is a crucial step towards that future. I urge you to do what is right, what is necessary, and what voters have already demanded. Oregon must lead in protecting public safety. Pass HB 3075-1 and fully implement Measure 114. Our lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have Tim Cohen and Alex Burks here? Following them will be Marilyn DePipes Keller, Don Perkis, and Maripat Hensel.
Chair Knopf, committee members, for the record, my name is Tim Cowan. I'm the chair of the Legislative Commission for the Department of Oregon. I also participate in the United Veterans Groups of Oregon. I am not making a statement about where they stand or not, but the American Legion was a commission created by Congress in 1919 to welcome back veterans coming back from World War I. It's nonpartisan. And we have about 266,000 veterans in Oregon who have taken an oath to defend the Constitution from foreign and domestic. I got in touch with the chairman for Oregon Department and also national and let them know that this will be a constitutional type of issue. I, believe it or not, read through the bill, and I found a lot of parts to it that were good. I just tried to find where in the bill does it restrict a person's access to their Second Amendment and their rights to own and bear arms. One last thing. When you think of someone having a gun to protect themselves, well, what about their responsibility to protect others? I remember my father told me that when someone was in danger, that was someone else's child, and you protect them just like a father, and a gun is my last resort. Don't take away my last resort to protect someone else. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello, Chair.
Okay, that made no sense.
My name is Alex Burris. The Second Amendment was ratified in 1791, was created to ensure a well-regulated militia composed of people to protect the right of the people and to keep and bear arms, serving as a safeguard against potential government overreach and ensuring the ability of citizens to defend themselves. The Second Amendment was not created for hunting, defending themselves against home intruders, or it was created to defend themselves against governmental overreach. Not only is Measure 114 unconstitutional, it is the exact reason the Second Amendment was created. If enacted, state officials and law enforcement are exempt from this, making it even easier to forcibly remove our rights. It is not a privilege to own firearms or to purchase them. It is a constitutional right. shall not be infringed is not open for interpretation. To purchase any firearms, we the people already have to pass a background check through the through Oregon State Police to prove our innocence. Creating gun laws based on the actions of criminals is like banning cars because of drunk drivers. Punishing law-abiding citizens due to the actions of others is not the answer. Harsher punishments for actual criminals would make more sense. 2 states with the highest firearms laws have the highest firearm crime rates, proving that gun control laws only hurt law-abiding citizens and don't affect criminals willing to break the law. Please reconsider this and remember your oath that you took and that you swore to uphold the U.S. Constitution and the Oregon Constitution. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Rick or Ricky Nelson, do we have us? Are you with us remotely? Do we have Marilyn and Dawn and Maripat?
No more red shirts. The red shirts are getting up.
Following them will be Brady Rowland and Matt Little.
I wonder how much money they got from USAID, huh? They must have got some money to buy them red shirts.
Hi, I'm Dawn Perkis. I've lived in Oregon since 2007, and I am a volunteer with Moms Demand Action. I also have a young daughter, so I'm testifying for her and to fight for a future where she doesn't have to fear gun violence in our schools and communities. I think it's also worth noting that my husband is a gun owner, and I support that.
There is no such
I'm
thing as gun
testifying in
violence,
support
lady.
of House Bill 3075-1, which makes small and specific changes to the firearm permit provisions of ballot measure 114. House Bill 3075-1 will help Oregon effectively implement permit to purchase and addresses technical fixes that will allow law enforcement to efficiently process permits. Measure 114, which the people of Oregon voted for over 2 years ago, includes 3 common sense gun safety laws. First, it requires a permit to acquire guns. Permits are available to those who pass a criminal background check, complete a gun safety course, and who are not in danger to themselves or others. Second, it closes the Charleston loophole that currently allows firearm transfers to proceed if a background check takes more than 3 days. Finally, it restricts magazines that can carry more than 10 rounds of ammunition. Research shows this law can reduce both homicide and suicide rates. Guns have drastically changed since 1791. Isn't it time our laws reflect those changes? Please support House Bill 3075-1 to help keep firearms out of the wrong hands and make our community safer. Please implement this into the courts as soon as possible. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to testify.
Hello, my name is Mary Pat Hensel. I'm a resident of Wilsonville, Oregon. Thanks in advance for listening to my story. I'm a survivor of gun violence, a mother, a grandmother, and an active civic and faith volunteer in my community. I'm a gun owner, and I am a 10-year volunteer for outreach in the community with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. When I started working on common sense firearm work, we saw 96 deaths per day in the US from firearm violence. Now it's 120. We can do better, and in Oregon, with 625 firearm deaths per year, we must do better. We have an opportunity right here, right now, in this 2025 legislative session. Pass HB 3075-1 out of committee. This bill will provide the methods for implementing ballot measure 114. This bill will help reduce homicides and suicides. The data shows that the careful review of those who want to own a firearm provides safety for those individuals who may want to use that firearm for suicide, as well as for other violence, such as domestic violence actions. We can save more lives. As the sister of a brother in his late 30s who used a firearm to end his life, I know the ripple effect of firearm violence. He died, and his son and our family know the impact. Don't delay. Let's save lives together. Let's support 3075-1 and move it to implement as soon as we can and get it out of the court system. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for being here. Do we have Brady Rowland here? Oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Oh, great.
This is Marilyn Keller. I was kicked out of the video meeting and I signed in on phone. Am I still able to testify?
Yep, you'll go next. All right, Marilyn?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Kropf, members of the committee. And for the record, my name is Brady C. Rowland. I am student body president at Portland State University, where I study public health and sociology. I also have served on the board of Ceasefire Oregon since December 2023. In both of these roles, I try to serve my communities and promote safety and security as much as I possibly can. Today, I am here on behalf of all the young people in Oregon who have been and will continue to beg you, our representatives, to take the epidemic of gun violence seriously.
Yeah, I know some young kids who would tell you to screw off,
Excuse
young
me,
lady.
I'm speaking.
They want their gun rights.
Guns are the leading cause of death for American children, teens, and young adults. In
I don't
Oregon,
care
the
if you're
rate of gun
speaking.
violence
I'll
is
speak
higher than
over
our
you. It's my
neighbors.
show.
Compared to Washington, our rate of gun violence is 22% higher, and compared to California, our rate is a shocking 74% higher. But I am not here to talk about statistics. Anyone with a phone and a brain could figure out that Americans are uniquely and unjustly being subjected to a culture obsessed with deadly weapons, and it's killing us young people more than any other mechanism. I have lost countless friends to gun violence. I have met countless survivors of gun violence. I am luckily not a survivor myself, and I hope to God I never will become one. But if we do not implement HB 3075-1 and get it passed through the legislature and implemented as soon as possible, more kids will die. HB 3075-1 is vital to helping curb the rate of gun violence Oregon faces. It would ban high-capacity magazines, close the Charleston loophole, and overall make our communities safer. I hope the hunters in the room know that you are only allowed 5-round magazines when shooting elk. So why do mass shooters in Oregon have no restrictions when they're hunting human beings? Unless you're planning to commit mass firearm violence, this law should not bother you. At the end of the day, this is a common sense gun law, which a majority of Americans and a majority of Oregonians agree with. Unless you're a criminal, I cannot fathom one good reason you would vote nay on this bill or this amendment.
Brady, if you could wrap it up, please.
I have one more paragraph, and it's short, very short.
No, it's okay. Hold on.
Shut up, lady.
Brady, that's your time.
You don't get
Thanks for
special
being-
rights. You don't get privileges because you're pretty. Who
Marilyn, are you with
cares?
us? Marilyn,
I am here.
go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Marilyn T. Keller, and I am one of the 3 chief petitioners for ballot measure 114. I've been part of Lift Every Voice Oregon since its inception, and the campaign to get this ballot measure passed was fielded by one of the most successful grassroots organizations to ever stand in Oregon for
That's
a ballot
bullshit.
measure.
They paid people to
All I
get those
can say is
petitions,
that
and
the
then they
fact that we have come
lied
this
about what
far
the bill
by
did.
faith, and we are standing here in this moment where the 9th District Court of Appeals has ruled on a statewide level that ballot measure 114 is constitutionally sound. We now have the opportunity with this House Bill 3075-1 to actually begin the process of implementing the law that was passed by the voters in November of 2022. All I'm asking right now is that common sense prevail and that the law that was passed by the voters, not just in the I-5 corridor urban districts, but all across the state, over 45% of the votes came from rural counties. So we know that people across the state are asking for this measure to be implemented, and it will save lives. It will create a measure of common sense when deciding to own a weapon. You should know how to operate that weapon and store it safely. And we are ready. The state of Oregon is ready for common sense to prevail. Thank you very much.
Great. Next, we'll hear from Matt Little, and following Matt, we'll hear from Omar Abid, Nigel Ruska, and Rick Kofal. Matt, are you with us?
I am, thank you. My name is Matt Little, and I am Ducks Unlimited's Policy Director for Oregon and the Western region. Ducks Unlimited is North America's primary organization dedicated to wetlands and waterfowl conservation, with over 6,000 members in Oregon and more than 131,000 acres of habitat locally conserved. We also believe strongly in hunter safety. Many people don't know this, but the primary source of state conservation dollars comes from hunters and firearms sales. Ducks Unlimited was founded by hunters in 1937. That same year, hunters successfully lobbied Congress to establish a tax on themselves at 11% on the sale of firearms and ammunition to promote wildlife conservation. This Pittman-Robertson tax, as it's called, goes back to the states and combines with fishing and hunting license and tag sales as the primary sources of current funding for ODF&W's wildlife conservation work. There are currently multiple bills proposed in the Oregon legislature that threaten this important source of Oregon conservation revenue by making the safe practice of hunting for food less accessible to low and middle income families. HB 3075 and Measure 114 do this by requiring new hunters to go through redundant gun safety training programs. Since I was a kid, all new hunters in Oregon and throughout America are required to pay for and go through a very thorough gun safety training program offered by state wildlife agencies like ODF&W. Our ask today is simply to allow Oregon's well-established hunter safety program to be considered an approved trading program for a hunter firearms purchase. Otherwise, we will be discouraging a healthy outdoor activity that many families, including my wife and 2 girls, enjoy and use to provide locally sourced and ethically harvested food to our tables. Thank you for this time.
Thank you. Omar, are you with us? Omar? Do we have Nigel with us?
So while I'm miking down the meeting, Ducks Unlimited, yeah, I don't know. That was a strange one to have him up there. But Ducks Unlimited is, you never know what you're going to do with that group.
I am Rick Kofel. I'm from Sisters, Oregon, and I'm a retired U.S. Army colonel, retired Multnomah County Sheriff's Office law enforcement supervisor, the NRA ILA Frontlines activist leader here for Oregon, and a law enforcement and NRA firearms instructor. I am opposed to House Bill 3075 and House Bill 3075-1 for many reasons, but I will only address 2 issues here. I consider this a very important Oregon issue, and I am testifying on this legislative bills while on vacation with my family in Hawaii. I'm taking up my family time to do this. This is important. I realize this bill is going to pass, but I want to point out 2 issues within this bill. House Bill 3075 is supposed to be a fix-all to ballot measure 114, but again, it lacks clarity defining requirements for the training requirement. For example, Oregon House Bill 3075 does not clearly define the specific requirement of the live fire exercise or training beyond having applicants demonstrate safe firearm handling and operation. In plain language, shoot the gun and don't hit anybody. If there's going to be a live fire component, there should be a minimum standard or defined live fire training. Hunter's Ed is a possibility, so is the NRA Basic Pistol Course, which explains safe firearm handling, live fire training, and ends with a small proficiency test. All of these will be an extra fee on top of the $150 that you have to have for the permit. But we need to do something. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. The second issue with House Bill 3075-1 and the standard capacity magazines is, how do you define, or it's up to the individual to prove their innocence? Why not change this to make it much simpler, but to change the language and get rid of the "you're breaking the law, now prove it," to simply state high capacity magazines can only be used on a person's private property, a private or public range or public shooting area, and that's it. That would be much easier and clarify for the people of Oregon. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Do we have Madeline Carlson or Nan Baker-Croft with us? Welcome.
Come on, let's
Hello,
go.
My name is Madeleine Garcelon, and I live in West Salem. I don't know if anybody here has ever lost a child to gun violence, but I have. My daughter was shot 7 times and murdered 10 and a half years ago. I'm still so full of grief. There's no words.
This lady is full of
And
grief, so she has to
everybody's
take it
talking
out
about
on the
high
rest of us.
cost of
This is ridiculous.
new thing of registration or permits. Has anybody been to the grocery store lately and tried to buy eggs? Oh my God, everything's going up. That shouldn't be an issue.
She went from her dead daughter to eggs real quick.
Second
Where's this
Amendment,
lady going?
and I am pro 3075-1. 10 and a half years ago when I got that call and the police came simultaneous to my door to tell me my daughter had been murdered, hot fear started to wash over me until I started screaming when I realized what had just been said. I don't know, like I said, if anybody here has a child that's been murdered by gun violence and seen the blood puddle where she bled out, I have the moral authority to ask you to please pass this measure for the safety of people that can't speak for themselves. Thank you.
You have no moral authority. You have only the authority that all the rest of us
This is really
individuals
triggering to
have.
people who've ever lost a child. So I've got my tissue. My name is Nan Baker Croft.
Oh,
I have been
boo-hoo. Cry
a
for me,
teacher
Argentina.
for 30 years. And I lived in Olympia, Washington for a time teaching up there. There was a school shooting in the building that I worked at.
And why didn't you have a
Many
gun to
students have
protect
had
those
to go on
kids,
these
lady?
drills,
It's your fault
and
those
it
kids
is
got shot.
terrifying
Did you have a
to
gun
many
to protect
students,
those
especially
kids?
younger
Did
students.
the teachers have a gun
And
to
to
protect
students
those
who
kids?
feel they're in a
No.
building that has too many windows and they
You're
can't really
responsible, lady.
be kept from the view. That is part of the drill that you do in high schools, getting behind a bookcase and squeezing together and keeping everybody completely silent and not using their phones just in case. This school, it was called North Thurston. Anybody who grew up in Oregon and was teaching during the time of the massacre in Thurston High School in Eugene knows that that word means a powerful feeling. And to have gone through 2 of those experiences with Thurston, I came home from school and I was just shaking. I had to lay down. I have been listening to things people say about their civil right. Do we have a civil right to have to be killed? Excuse me? How does it be that
Murder is
you're
against the
jogging
law.
and you need to have a gun to protect
Murder is
yourself?
against the law,
I don't
lady.
see anybody wearing holsters when they're jogging. And 70% is not just barely passing. It is a significant, it's a higher amount than the president of this country has passed in the election. And we could make a difference in our state. And I urge you strongly to allow the students and young people to have a safe place in Oregon to live and to know that they don't have to have shooting drills in their schools because
Oregon
we
is the
have
least
a
safe
safe
place
state.
for children, lady,
And
because
you know
they
what?
could die of fentanyl.
The
Wish them they
musket
could go
ball
to
was
public
how
school and
the
have their
people
wings cut off.
voted on the Second
Yeah.
Amendment.
And you're worried
You
about
could
school
one shot
shootings
in
that are
those
so
days,
rare.
not multiple.
It doesn't very well happen that much.
Here, do we have
It's
do we have
ridiculous
Ocean,
they keep bringing this up.
Ocean, are you with us?
It's 441.
Yep. Do we have Jared Ankeny with us?
You know, we've all suffered situations where we have been in victims of crimes. I know I have, and I know most people I know have been victims of crimes. And you can't use that experience as a way to violate other people's rights.
Of Cornelius in Forest Grove. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I oppose this bill just like I opposed Measure 114. Both measures were framed to be solutions to gun violence, but they share a deep flaw, and that's that they target law-abiding citizens rather than addressing the root causes of violence. After its passage, Oregon saw a historic surge of gun sales. Firearm manufacturers couldn't keep up with the demand. And it's not just for guns, but for magazines and ammunition. Even to this day, there's often shortages of both. The reason why the checks, background checks couldn't keep up was because regular Oregonians, including people who never owned a firearm before, were desperately afraid that they were going to lose their rights to own a firearm. So their safety, felt at risk. And let's be clear, when you restrict lawful access, you don't reduce the number of guns, you create fear and urgency. You incentivize panic buying, divert attention from systemic issues driving violence, such as poverty, a lack of health care, underfunded schools, and vanishing economic opportunity. And claim what you want. HB 3075 is going to be a windfall for the gun manufacturers. If we eventually, if we actually want to reduce violence, let's address why people turn to violence in the first place. Improve healthcare so that folks aren't drowning in despair. Create living wage jobs. Invest in schools, housing, and addiction treatments, among other things. You show me the incentives, and I'll show you the outcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Were you signed up? Come on up. Yeah. Yes. Is there anybody else that was signed up that's here in person? I've tried to get through all the in-person people. Come on up. Yep, please. Come on up, please. And we have a hard stop in like 2 minutes. I apologize. Go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Juliana Moore, and I'm here to oppose House Bill 3075. It claims to refine regulations put forth by 114, but instead it imposes burdens on law-abiding citizens with no clear evidence of enhancing public safety. How? It extends the issuance timeline to 60 days, raises fees for permitting, which means the initial budget estimate in 114 is wrong. And I appreciate that for some people, $150 initial fee and $110 renewal is not an issue, but for a lot of us it is. You shouldn't have to pay to exercise your Second Amendment right. Nowhere in Oregon or the United States Constitution says this. It also doesn't say anything about training classes to exercise your Second Amendment right. People who commit gun violence don't do so because they don't take a training class. My ex sexually assaulted me at gunpoint. He didn't or wouldn't have taken a class to get the gun. The gun he got, he didn't go through a background check. And he didn't even go through the existing process. So me, who was on the other end of his violence, shouldn't have to jump through hoops and wait up to 60 days, plus pay extra money, plus take a class to defend myself. Of course, he broke his restraining order and after the fact and came and went before the cops came. I need to be able to protect myself because no one else will. If this goes through, I'll need a new firearm that fits the rules. So my choice is either to be illegal criminal with my existing firearms or have no way to defend myself. We don't know the financial impact other than the fees raising that this is going to cost both the state and the average person. But again, money gating the Second Amendment right is wrong and not everyone can afford those fees. Finally, I haven't seen anyone mention the text about only challenging it in Marion County, but if the bill impacts the whole state, I don't understand why you have to be in Marion County if everyone can vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Luis. I oppose it. I think you guys are going after the people that are going through the steps of getting their guns. They already go through background checks. We do everything we have to stay in compliance with all the rules and regulations. You guys aren't doing anything for the people that get their guns and everything illegally. I've seen it. I've been in the mix sometimes when I've seen people with illegal guns getting them without any restrictions, without any background checks, without any of that. We go through, all of us gun owners go through all this background checks and jumping through hoops. And I feel like this bill, all it is doing is choking us, not doing anything for the people that get them illegally. Any of that. It's restricting our just everything we do. We try to maintain a level-headed way of living, and it just feels like every step of the way, something is just stepping on us and pushing us down on all the restrictions. That's about it.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Julie Bivens from Cresswell. I think that the Second Amendment is really clear, and the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Doesn't have any wiggle room to it, none. So the fact that what you're doing is going against the Constitution is illegal. I think that what you're doing is actually deprivation of rights under color of law, which I think you should probably be aware of that term. If you're not, color of law is a legal term that describes an action that appears to be based on law, but is actually illegal. It's often used to describe the abuse of power by a government or a government agent. You all, if you push this bill forward, are committing a felony. And I want you to be aware of that. And I'm hoping that now that we're supposedly turning back to being a country of law, of rule of law, that even down to state level, even down to city level, that the corruption will be wiped out. We cannot allow things like this to continue to happen because we all become victims when it does. Chicago, they have no guns, do they? But how many people get murdered every weekend? A gun-free zone doesn't mean that you're getting a safe zone. So anyway, I just hope that you guys fear for your safety and avoid Gitmo by doing the right thing, because deprivation of rights under color of law is a real thing.
Right, thank you. I feel like I saw one more hand for somebody who's here in person. Do you want to come up and we'll conclude?
Thank you, guys.
All right. Sorry, this is the last two pieces of testimony, then we have to conclude.
Thank goodness. Last piece of
Sir in
testimony.
the green shirt, if you want to come up and give
You
brief
think it
remarks.
did any good? I don't.
Can we have someone from the other side go?
Wait, hold on. This is all we have. I apologize. This is all we have time for. These two gentlemen will be the last two.
Thank you, committee, for this opportunity to speak. My name is Marvin Cosby, and I'm from Springfield, Oregon. I've heard over
That's
and over
Mark's
again
brother,
about
by the way.
deaths in the family and pain. Pain and agony is part of life. We all go through it. We all suffer it. We've all experienced members of our families that have committed suicide, overdoses of drugs. It's just the way it is. I also heard that in some counties like Coos County, Curry County, that the rates are higher, rural counties. It's because occupations and jobs and opportunities are less. A man derives his value from the work that he does. If you provide him work, he'll feel better. There'll also be less problems in the home, less violence all around. Well, not more than about 5 blocks from here, there's probably going to be an overdose of drugs tonight. Salem being the second largest city in Oregon. And these deaths from fentanyl, heroin, and even meth. I think I want to speak to meth. We see it on the streets every day. Even though that individual has not passed yet, they really aren't there. There's where we can make a difference from the legislative branch of the state is we start attacking those. The taking of your own life, suicide's a horrible thing, but they have many tools in which to do it. And like the last speaker, I understand that in section 22 of this bill, that it can only be challenged in the circuit court of Marion County. There's 36 counties in the state of Oregon. Don't stack the deck against us. At least deal us all an equal number of cards and allow 18 other counties to also rule in opposition to this bill. Thank you.
Welcome. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Alex Cole. I'm from Tillamook, Oregon. I oppose HB 3075 for several different reasons, but one of the reasons is that there is no fiscal impact statement at all with this bill. Nobody's said anything about what's going to cost the state, what it's going to cost the counties, what it's going to cost the taxpayers to be able to implement this. I also oppose 114 because it was falsely sold to the voters. All these people come up here saying that people don't want the best background checks in the state of Oregon. It's completely false. Since 1989, they've required background checks from federal firearms dealers. In 2000, they passed another ballot measure requiring background checks at gun shows, including transfers between private individuals. And in 2015, they made it so that private party transfers had to go through a federal firearms license. So anybody who is transferring firearms back and forth without going through a license and going through a background check is doing so illegally. So maybe we need to spend the money to go through the people who are doing that instead of focusing on the law-abiding citizens who are taking the steps to do this properly, and then they're getting their rights taken away. Because what this bill is going to do is make it so that if somebody needs to go buy a gun for whatever reason, whether it's due to a failure, due to they want to buy one because they can, they won't be able to. And they won't be able to defend themselves or their families, which is illegal.
Thank you for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here and participating and testifying. For those who were not able to testify, I apologize that we ran out of time. I tried to.
And there you go. That was the hearing on your Second Amendment rights. And as you can tell, they stack the decks. They love stacking the decks. That's just what they do. And we, you know, at least that one was a little bit more impartial than sometimes they usually fill the room full of those red shirt ladies. The red shirt ladies. I was totally being triggered by that. I don't know, man. I was just freaking out. All those women in red shirts. I was just, I don't know. I think we need to pass a law against more than 5 or half a dozen women in red shirts, because I was really triggered by that. And don't my feelings count? Don't my feelings count? I don't know. I don't know if that matters to all of these liberals, but I guess I should put myself on the screen. There we go. That's much better. And so, I don't know. I watch this stuff. I've seen this in person. I've been there to testify in person. I left some testimony today, and you can still do that. I think you have until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning to leave testimony, but submit testimony against the gun ban bill, HB 3075, as I have shown you. Let me go ahead and pop that up there. Go to the the OLE's website, the Oregon Legislature website, and there right there on this page is the committee hearing. But like I said, you click the link to HB 3075 at the top, it takes you to the summary of HB 3075. You follow these tabs, you go along to submit testimony, and you can submit testimony. If you want to see the testimony that's already been submitted, you can hit testimony and see all of the testimony there that has been submitted already. And a lot of the people who've testified already, Derek LeBlanc, he's already testified on all this. I'm in there somewhere. I don't know. I'll have to catch the total on this to see how many were for and how many were against that. But this is just one of those things where it's frustrating because we have to go through this. But it's sad because you and I know that they're going to pass this bad gun bill. This is what they do in Oregon. And all of those people up there talking about suicide, that's where gun deaths get skewed, because gun deaths are the main instrument used in suicides, other than, and I would argue, fentanyl. Fentanyl is probably the other most used weapon that people use to kill themselves. I hear it every night on the scanner. I don't know how many times we will have drug overdoses almost every single night. I don't know how many times I've heard of people passing away, hear it on the radio, right here on the scanner, and nobody seems to be worried about that. In fact, they want to make drugs easier to get. They want to provide drugs to these people instead of actually giving them something, an alternative, or allowing alternatives to be created, because they're putting so much money into the homeless industrial complex. They're once again, they're trying to create a situation where they say, well, we need more homes. If we just had more homes, maybe people would be doing less fentanyl and committing less crimes. I don't know how they equate it. And if we have too many guns, then people are going to be out there killing themselves. And I'll be honest with you, it's silly. It's a silly argument because Oregon encourages suicide. We are a suicide-assisted state, meaning if you have a terminally ill disease and you want to die, the state will give you the drugs you need to kill yourself, which is ridiculous. You can kill yourself 10,000 ways to Sunday. Ask Keith. I think was it David Carradine or Keith Carradine? Jeff P. had the name up earlier. But one of the Carradines killed himself. Robin Williams killed himself. I had a cousin who killed herself. She hung herself. I had friends who killed themselves. I had a friend who literally went down and laid out on the railroad tracks to kill themselves. Now, that's one hell of a way to kill yourself. And I'm going to make this argument right now. One of the reasons I own a gun is if there's a situation where I want to pull my own trigger, I should have the right to do that. Now, I'm too much of a shallow, egotistical person to ever kill myself. I'm just too self-centered for that. So I don't think you have to worry about me ever killing myself. But one of the reasons I own a gun is just for that reason. And I know there are people out there who say, well, we need to get Rob to counseling. Oh, we need to talk to Rob. Maybe we need to take away his guns. Maybe we need to pull a red flag law on him because he just said, that's right, he just said, and I'm saying it, that one of the reasons I own guns is in case I want to pull my own trigger, that's my damn business. It's no one else's business but my own. My life is mine. I own it, man. And my death, if I want to decide the way I want to die, I'm going to do it. And I want to meet the son of a bitch who thinks he can stop me. I would love to meet that person because you can't. There's no way possible. And you're not going to prevent other people from killing themselves. If people want to die, they will die. You can go out in the woods. There's a couple of cliffs right here, right? Just not far, just a couple of miles of walking distance. There's a couple of cliffs. And you can go and jump off a cliff. In fact, I've told many of the derelict criminals here in Bandon, yeah, there's a cliff right down the ways. Go find a cliff out in the woods and then jump off of it because you're just a waste of life. And I know people, and I know especially Christians might be getting upset with me, but that's the cold, hard fact. And one of the Cosby brothers, they brought up a very important point, is that we've all suffered. We've all suffered. We've all suffered. I just mentioned friends of mine who've died, family who have died, and we've all suffered. Suffering is a natural condition of life. And just because you're in pain and you're suffering doesn't mean you have the right to take away other people's rights and ability to defend themselves and their family because your loved one had a mental defunct moment and killed themselves. Maybe they didn't even have a defunct moment. Maybe there was a legitimate reason for them killing themselves. I often wonder that, if because you can't really find out if they're successful in killing themselves. Once they do kill themselves, you wonder, what did they have a good reason? Maybe for them it was justified and they wanted it that way. I'm not going to make that question. I'm not going to make that decision for other individuals. But this is how they skew the gun laws. And once again, I go back to all of the drugs that are being peddled. They will allow people to live in their own waste here in this state. And every one of those people you just saw testified for this gun bill, they act like they were so compassionate. So compassionate. What's the word that Chris Castleman used? Sadistic altruism. Yes, it's sadistic altruism. They feel so much deeper than you and I that they have to be able to control and manipulate us because we're just not that deep feeling type of people. They're the deep feelers. Those ladies in the red shirt, the reason they wear red shirts is because they're much more emotionally deep than you are. You and I, we're just peons. We're knuckle dragging Neanderthals, and well, we should just be led away and not allowed to do anything. I don't even know why they allow us to drive. If we're all that stupid, then why the hell do they even allow us to drive? But Jeff P, yeah, cheapest way is a bullet besides fentanyl. And that's absolutely right. It's funny. You know, if I would have made that same statement, yeah, the reason I keep fentanyl around the house is if I want to pull the trigger at any point in time, I'll do that. What's the difference? There are people out there sitting out there right now who are on their dozenth, 20th, 30th overdose. And tonight they're going to get high on fentanyl. And you people are worried about people with guns. Wow. That's just amazing. But I don't know. I think we'll have to get over this because, well, you know, we have no other choice. We have no other choice. We have to keep fighting this. And it just makes me mad that we have to take steps to make these testimonies, to waste our time with these type of meetings. Think of all the time, think of all the energy and time and money that was just eaten up by that last 2 hours. That was a huge amount of money. A whole bunch of us could have been doing a lot of things. I mean, maybe one of those ladies in the red shirt might have cured cancer if they weren't spending all their time testifying against our rights. You know, maybe that would help them out. Maybe they need something to do. Let's see. I want to switch gears here. I'm getting tired of talking about the Second Amendment. Let's see here. This is a good story out of Oregon. And I just had to bring this up because, you know, we're talking about guns, but read this. Oregon Department of Education. Oregon achieves together. Now, I'm going to read this story. And I want you to think about what you just saw in the gun testimony. The people who are testifying for it are the same people who are pushing diversity, equity, and inclusion, all that DEI crap. I want to read from this story. Let me make sure it's up here. Yeah. Let me go ahead and share that page. There we go. Okay, here I am. Okay, so let me get back to this story here. The Oregon Department of Education. You're going to love this. The Oregon Department of Education prioritized which school districts would receive $30 million in 2024 summer school grants based upon the race and ethnicity of students, according to department documents obtained by Oregon Roundup. As a result, districts with relatively high percentages of students from department identified preferred racial groups received top priority for funding. Yeah, isn't that nice? These are the same people who are going to dictate to you which rights you have to get a permit for. And I guess maybe at a certain point, they're going to dictate that a certain race and ethnicity should have more priority to having guns than other races and ethnicities. I don't know. It's not an argument that's isn't being made in other areas. So why wouldn't they use it for the distribution of guns? Yeah, we got to use DEI for the distribution of guns. But last year, the Oregon legislature passed and Governor Tina Kotek signed into law a summer school grant program reflecting Kotek's belief that expanding summer school offerings would help students, many of whom struggle in the state's badly lagging school system. Yeah, that's if you can even call it a system at that. House Bill 4082 passed both houses of the legislature easily on a bipartisan basis, 53-4 in the House, 26-4 in the Senate. It ordered ODE, that's the Oregon Department of Education, was to prioritize which districts would receive grant funding from the limited pool of help students who are economically disadvantaged from racial or ethnic groups that have historically experienced academic disparities with disabilities, English language learners, and homeless and foster children. Which, okay, I understand these are groups or people who they have some situations that limit their opportunities. So what we should do is give them more opportunities and not take away opportunities from others. And so here it is, House Bill 4082. And this is why I show you guys all the time how to use or why you should use the Oregon legislative OLE system to find out How did House Bill 4082 come about? Well, you can click that. Here, I'm going to share this tab. And look, right there, we're back on OLEs. And this is House Bill 4082 that was passed in 2024. And so I'm going to look down here. Let me make sure this page is sharing. Yeah, this page is sharing. So I'm going to go down here and let's look at this. There was a public hearing held. A work session was held. Another work session was held on this bill that discriminated against white people. And then you go down to the House. And you can see here, you click that and you look at all of the Republicans who voted for this bill. Boyce voted for this bill. Court Boyce, he voted for this bill that gives preferential treatment to people of color. I thought Court Boyce was white. Why does he hate his own people? I don't know. Breezy Iverson, she voted for this. Why did she vote for this bill? Let's see, going on down there. Owens. Yeah, Mark Owens. Yeah, he's the one who voted for that wildfire mapping bill, 762. Well, he voted for this bill, this discrimination bill. Pretty interesting. Look, Boomer Wright. Boomer Wright voted for this bill. Why would all these Republicans be voting for this DEI nonsense that puts preferential treatment of minorities over white people? That by itself is discrimination. So let's go on down a little bit further. Let's see. Well, then it goes to the Senate. Here's the Senate when they took a vote on it. Let's look at this. Wow, a lot of the senators voted for it. Dick Anderson. Dick Anderson would vote for anything leftist if he thought it would keep his seat in the district he's in. He has to be a lefty. He's a Republican. He claims to be a conservative. He's really neither. Brian Boquist, he voted against this bill. Dennis Lithicum, he voted against this bill. Bonham, he voted against it. And of course, Robinson did, because Robinson is a genius. The man is an incredibly smart man, and he voted against this bill. But look who voted against it. Who voted for it? Who voted for this discriminatory bill? Well, David Brock Smith voted for this discriminatory bill. And oddly enough, so did Kim Thatcher. Kim Thatcher right there, she voted for this bill. I wonder why Kim voted for this bill. I'm going to contact Kim and ask her why she voted for this. This is very interesting. I haven't gone back and looked at the committees. And if you see where I'm scrolling up, you can go back to where they had work sessions, and you can click that work session, and it will take you to that work session. Let's see, where am I? And this right here, they have the videos of that work session. I'm not going to go through that now and see why the Republicans voted for this nonsense. But I'm just completely offended that these Republicans who claim to be conservatives are voting for this DEI crap. This just ticks me off. But this is why every time you see a bill, when you see a story on a bill like this House Bill 4082 that's in this article, and you see that it's linked to the OLEs, then you need to click that link and go find out who the hell voted for this crap. Because I don't know, personally, I'm getting, a little sick of this type of garbage coming from the Republicans. And if this is the way they want to play, then I'm not sure why we keep voting them into office. This is something that has to go. Let's see. I don't got a lot of time here, so I want to keep this short. There was another story I wanted to talk about because it will involve Oregon at some point in time. The American Policy Center, Tom DeWeese, I've had him on the show several times. I'm going to get him back on here soon. The Supreme Court rules Utah doesn't have a right to own to its own land. Yeah, I don't know if you heard about this, but in 2013, Utah submitted a Transfer of Public Lands Act to the federal government, calling it to fulfill the pledge under the state's Enabling Act to dispose of most federal lands in the state, some of which would be placed back to the state, which is a good idea. I like that idea. I wish Oregon would do that. I think the instead of going back to the state, I think it should go back to the counties. But 11 years later, in January of this year, the Supreme Court refused Utah's filing to bring 18.5 million acres of its land and its resources under state control. This is in unappropriated land, that is, land that is not designated as a national monuments, national ports, or land held for military bases or held in trust for Indian reservations. The decision came in a brief order with no explanation of its reasoning, because there is no reasoning for it. And I'm very disappointed with the Supreme Court, but I'm continue this. It says this is about land and ownership. Should the federal government control our land, or should we, the people, and our states? And I would go back to we, the people. In fact, I wouldn't just give it back to the states or not even to the counties. I would force it to go back into the free market. That's really, truly where this land should go, back into the free market. And then you could put restrictions on, how many parcels of land one individual or one company can buy. I mean, there are things you can do to make sure that this, if you put this land back on the market, that people won't get it. But I continue with the article that says Western states are handicapped vis-a-vis land ownership. The federal government owns 46% of the land area in the 11 contiguous Western states, while it owns only 4.2% of the land area in the Eastern state. About 70% of Utah's total land area is under federal control, but this act is about just 1/3 of the land in Utah, just 1/3. So the federal government would still control a good bit. The federal government controls nearly 70% of the land in Utah. That is about 2/3 of the land in Utah. And why is this important to those of us in Oregon? Because the federal government owns 54% of our state. And there is no constitutional, literally no constitutional reason that I can find. I don't know, the Supremes, they've got a lot more education than I do. They have a lot more background in law than I do. But I read the same documents that they're basing this decision on, and I come to a completely different conclusion. And so hopefully with the president putting out that order about managing our federal lands and giving some of that lands back to the state, maybe that could happen. That could possibly happen. And if that's what it takes to do that, then we should be pushing for it. And I don't want this coming from an executive order. I want this to be an act of Congress. I'm worried about all these executive orders that the president is putting out, because an executive order is only good for the term of the president or the term of the next president if the president agrees with the last president and keeps that executive order. If it gets turned over to a Democrat, well, you know what happened when Biden took out Trump in 2020? Well, the first thing he did was got rid of all of those executive orders. And this is really distressing because Congress has the House, they have the Senate, and they should be matching every executive order with a piece of legislation, but that doesn't seem to be happening. And they don't seem to be debating any of this stuff. So really, they are acquiescing their authority to the president, which is only a temporary authority until the next president gets into office. And that's not the way this country is supposed to work. We're supposed to have a legislative body that creates these laws, and the judiciary, they interpret those laws, and the executive office enforces those laws. And the executive branch isn't supposed to create laws. Legislation isn't supposed to come out of the executive branch. It certainly isn't supposed to come out of the judicial branch. But the one branch that is responsible for this type of legislation, or every legislation, well, they are acquiescent to the courts and to the president. And this is going to be a huge problem going down the road, because we may lose Trump at some point in time. So this is a really concern of mine, and I want to talk to Tom DeWeese about this. I'm going to have him on the program sometime in the future. So we'll see what he has to say. Let's see. Did you guys see this? I don't know if you saw this about the Devereaux Center. Yeah, that $35,000 fence they had out front. Yeah, part of it got blown away. Yeah, I don't know why that fence cost so much money. $35,000. I put up a fence around my backyard that was larger than this fence, and it didn't cost us no $35,000 to do it. If it would have cost me $35,000 to put up a wood fence around my backyard, it just isn't going to happen. So I'm not sure why it costs these people that much, but this was your tax dollars, and it hasn't even been up a year. I don't think it has been up 6 months, and it's already blown down. I've had my fence up I've had my fence up at least 12 years before the first piece of fence blew down and I've repaired it. And most of the fence, 90% of the fence, has stayed and remained solid since I think it was about 15 years ago I put that sucker up. So I don't know who the contractor was on this, but I would be really questioning their abilities to construct a wood fence, especially at $35,000. Damn, people. Damn. That's just well, that was just a lot of the mess. I do also have to I announced this on Friday. Last Monday we were talking about the Waterfall Clinic and how they had a CEO who lost his license because he was accused of allegedly molesting young people. And this is a guy who is a counselor for, guess what, young people. Yeah, can you imagine that? But I want to update the story on this Lance Nelson guy, and I want to show you his face. This guy's a pervert. This guy used to get paid with your tax dollars. No, he didn't work for the government, but the nonprofit that he works for, the Waterfall Clinic, gets most of their money from taxpayers. And this guy basically was working off of your tax-paying dollars, and he was accused of molesting children many years ago, and which is weird because he's worked with children since then. So you have to ask yourself, are there other victims out there? Yeah, are there, Lance? So if you see this guy out there, ask him how many other victims are there out there, because we don't like wasting our tax dollars on perverts. No, I really don't, unless I'm putting them in jail. But here's the notice that the Waterfall community, yeah, right. Jeez, give me a break. They have put out the notice saying that they have accepted Lance Nelson's resignation, and they put someone else in charge. So I wanted to give that update in case you didn't see the Friday show where we talked about it. But this makes it official. This makes it official. But we're not letting Waterfall Clinic off the hook that easy. No, Lance Nelson, the guy who was the CEO of Waterfall Clinic. Well, we think that Waterfall Clinic was protecting this guy. We think that they knew about his activities or the accusations against him long before he was fired. And so what we're going to do is we are going to get records requests from the licensing board that gave him the license to counsel youth, because they are part of the government, and we can get public records requests from people like the board who gives him his license. So we're going to find out if the board had contacted the Waterfall Clinic, when they contacted them, what information they exchanged with the clinic, and what the clinic knew about this Lance Nelson before it became public and everyone else was in an uproar about this. Because I've got a suspicion that Waterfall Clinic may have been covering up this. Jeff Petey says he molested little boys. Well, Jeff, yep, you and I know, we're pretty sure about this, but we got to say alleged. We got to say alleged, man. You don't want to get me sued, but he allegedly molested little boys, but he lost his license because the licensing board believed these young men and took away his license. So I don't believe he's been tried. He is being sued, and we will keep up with that lawsuit. I hope these young men, if they were truly molested, I hope they're as successful in taking this bastard down. And the sad part is from what I understand it, this person right here, this Lance Nelson, he has a young son of his own that he's in charge of, from what I understand. If I read his divorce papers correct, he just recently got divorced from his wife, and I think it was 2022. And from what I understand, he's left and got custody of his 12-year-old son. That is disturbing. That's sending up red flags. I'd be having to question that. But I got to get out of here because I'm going to go to dinner. St. Patrick's Day dinner with a bunch of fellow conservatives. And I'm just going to let it out of the bag if you guys want to join me. Let's see. Oh no, where did I put that? Oh no, I don't. Shoot, I can't find the invitation. Now I can't think of the restaurant. Well, I guess it doesn't matter. I can't even think of that. What was that restaurant? It's in Allegheny. It's that really nice restaurant. I can't think of the name of it right now offhand. Let me see if that's all right. But yeah, we're going to be celebrating St. Patrick's Day tonight with a bunch of fellow conservatives. Coach House. Thank you, Jeff P. Thank you so much, Coach House. I don't know why I was having such a brain fart. I couldn't remember that. But tonight at Coach House at 6:00, I'm meeting a bunch of conservatives up there, and you're supposed to RSVP, but if you guys want to sneak in, you have to buy your own meal, you have to buy your own drinks, but it's going to be good conversation. We're going to have a lot of good conversation. We're going to be talking about the upcoming election because we got some really good conservative candidates and we really want to support them. So tonight, if you want to come and have dinner with me, I'm not buying by no means. You have to pay for your own damn dinner because I'm a cheap bastard. You have to pay for your own drinks too because I'm just as cheap there too. So, but you can join me. I will be at the Coach House tonight at 6:00. And boy, Samantha Smith Sizemore, even Coach House. Wow. A lot of people know about this. It must be a wonderful place to eat. I've eaten there. I just went to a dinner for a pregnancy clinic, which I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to have people from that pregnancy clinic on the show because they encourage women to keep their babies instead of having abortions. And I just went to this clinic. They had their 40-year anniversary, and the Coach House gave out they catered the dinner and it was beautiful. Good stuff. Jeff P says, Rob will let you in the back door. The back door of the Coach House. Yes, I'm not, Jeff, you can take that several different ways. The back door of the Coach House. You should have finished that sentence there a little bit better. This is Jeff P. This is what he says. Rob will let you in the back door. Yeah. Sure, I will. Sure, I will. Yeah, if I get a few tequilas in me, I don't know. I'm going to love this. This is going to be good stuff. But there is a meeting tomorrow. The commissioners is having a meeting. They're still working on taking out the Urban Renewal Agency. But that's happening tomorrow at 9:30 in the morning. And they're going to be talking about, they've got a new ordinance coming in. It's a state mandate on septic tanks, wastewater, I believe it was. I forget the term they used, but it's more regulations on private property owners. You may want to get to the meeting tomorrow at 9:30. If I can't make it in person, I will check in on the computer and be there online. I was there today for the Urban Renewal meeting. I really don't want to go to Coquille, but damn, did you see Winter Lake? Wow, Winter Lake. It's got whole new shores. And of course, Jeff Pete is laughing his ass off about that backdoor comment. Well, I'm a little sensitive. I don't know. That backdoor thing is just a little sensitive, man. Coos Bay City Council meeting tomorrow night. This is going to be an interesting one because the Coos Bay superintendent is going to be putting on a presentation. Yep, I would like to be interested in seeing that. So I'm definitely going to check that out. And I don't even live in Coos Bay, but what the hell? I'm always interested in what they're doing. And you should be too if you live in the city. And remember, you only have until the 20th to get registered to vote. No, I didn't want that up on the screen. But you can go to the, you can go to the Coos County website, go to the county clerk's office before 5 p.m. on the 20th. This is all you have. Today is the 17th. You have until the 20th, which is Thursday, to register for a school district, a fire district, the college. We need people on the college because they've got a pervert working for them. Yeah, they've got a pervert working at SWAC. And boy, we'd like to see about 4 new people on that board. And let's get a new policy in there that doesn't allow people to be hired if they're perverts. I shouldn't say perverts. I guess if you're a pervert with consenting adults, that's okay if you're that type of pervert. But if you're one of those kid diddling perverts or you're just a sex offender, well then, yeah, we shouldn't be hiring you. at SWAC. Let's see. Joseph says, every time our public servants meet, it's for the purpose of removing more rights and imposing more restrictions and regulations. That's true, Joseph. And this is why I tell people you have to go to the meetings, because they're going to do some shit there and take away more of your rights, and you're never going to know about it because, well, why? Well, you're not at the meeting. You're not at the meeting, man. And you can go online. You don't even have to drive to Coquille. You can go online and please make a comment. If you see them doing something stupid, make a public comment at the end, or if it's in discussion, make a comment on the agenda item during the discussion point. And I don't know why more people don't do that. It's just absolutely ludicrous. Let's see. I got to play one of my favorite commercials for you, and it's from one of my sponsors. And right, that was 3H Tree Service. 3H Tree Service. They're the guys you need to hire. Because they're the best. They're the best at removing trees. You've got trees that are liabilities on your property. The branches are about to fall on your neighbor's garage, and you don't want to have to pay your neighbor for a brand new garage. Well, you need to call 3H Tree Service, 541-294-1800. And I can tell you right now, with the weather that's been going on this weekend, 3H Tree Service is real busy. But there's another reason that you should be supporting 3H Tree Service. Can you believe this? Yeah, there's a guy who's trying to boycott 3H Tree Service. And the reason this pervert is trying to get 3H Tree Service to stop sponsoring me is because so I won't spread my right-wing agenda, my right-wing lunacy. I won't even read here. This is a guy who we all know. And let me show you who this is from. This is from Sal Carruthers. Sal Carruthers, yes, this pervert, this sex offender, this derelict of society is asking all of you to boycott 3H Tree Service. Yeah, I don't think so. 3H Tree Service rocks, and he ain't going to have any effect on him. In fact, I've got a prediction. Sal Carruthers, the more you boycott my sponsors, the more business they're going to get. That's right. And I want you guys to, if you can help me out, if you've got some, you need to take out some trees, some shrubbery, you need to, whatever you need to do where you need 3H Tree Service, give them a call. If you need a tree service, they're the ones to call because they're patriots, they're conservatives. And they've been doing the right thing for a long time, and they've been a sponsor of this show. If you like what I've been doing and what the people around me have been doing, 3H Tree Service has been there the whole time. So I've got a prediction that Sal Carruthers, his boycott is not only going to fail, but it's actually going to drive more people to 3H Tree Service. And if you want to go to 3H Tree Service, you can reach them at 541-294-1800. 3H Tree Service. We were going to play Where's 3H Tree Service, but Matt put out a video, and within 5 minutes, someone won the money. So we couldn't even do that. And I want to offer congratulations to whoever won the money there. That's a good thing. But I got to get to my other sponsors. Tim over at Tom and Gigs. Oh, shoot. I forgot to call Tim. Damn it. Oh, man. But Tom and Gigs, if you have any automotive needs, go see Tom and Gigs, and they can take care of it. You need struts, you need shocks, you need brakes, you need mufflers. They can take care of it. You need to get your car aligned. Yeah, you're going on a trip and you want it checked out. They can check out your car to make sure it's ready to travel. Good things happening over at Tom and Gigs, and you can find them at 135 South Shoneman Street in Coos Bay, Oregon. And they're behind the car wash in the Empire neighborhood. And if you know where the Empire neighborhood is, you know where the car wash is. And good people there. Herbal Choices for all your cannabis needs. And by the way, they're having a sale today, St. Patrick's Day. Go get your green at the green. Yeah, go get your green at the Herbal Choices. Yes, Herbal Choices Cannabis for all your herbal needs. You can find out more at the herbalchoices.com website. That's the herbalchoices.com website. And remember, you must be 21 years or older to participate because it's not a recommendation. It's the law. You better obey the law. I'm the law. Yeah. Not too good. And they do have 5 stores, one in Charleston, one in Coos Bay, one in Bandon, one in Reedsport, and one in North Bend. Once again, you want to help out people like me who are activists, and I hate the word activist. It's just a lousy word. But you want to help people who are active in their government, patriots like, people like me and people like you who want to fight against the tyranny of government. Well, if you got cannabis needs, this is one of the dispensaries that actually goes out there and tries to protect your rights. In fact, the owners of Herbal Choices were some of the people who were out there trying to make sure that people were able to smoke weed legally. I've been fighting for that for 30 years, and it was nice to move to a state that did finally legalize it. Beautiful thing. I think so. Just my opinion. And remember, not everyone should be using pot, and no one under 21 is legally able to use pot. So there you go. That's just the way it is. Oregon Firearms Federation. I can guarantee you Kevin was watching that same testimonies that we just watched. And when Penny Okamoto, I forget the name of her group. She has a gun group. She's been around for a long time fighting against your Second Amendment rights. And I remember the first time I met Penny Okamoto. For years, I'd been talking to her on the phone, and I finally met her in person, and she's that blonde-haired white woman that you saw. And I went up to her and I said, Peggy, it's Rob Taylor. She said, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And says, for years, I thought you were an Oriental woman. And she goes, you mean Asian? And I go, well, yeah, but you're neither. So what does it matter? Oh, she got offended because I used the word Oriental. I don't know when that word became bad, but whatever, Penny. She wants to take away your gun. So Oregon Firearms Federation, if you want to find out more, contact them at OregonFirearms.org. Bandon Gun Club, you can get, you want to go out and practice with your firearms here in Bandon, go to BandonGunClub.org. If you want to sight in your rifle, go to Taiga Sports Park. You can find out more at TaigaSportsPark.org. And of course, the Coos County Neighborhood Watch. I recommend you guys, if you're interested in keeping up with all the criminals around Coos County, this is the group to check out because they got a list of them all. And they've got everyone's name and number. I can guarantee you, and they're active members of the Coos County Neighborhood Watch who are in your neighborhood patrolling and don't know when, don't know where, but they're out there patrolling. There are people out there who are actively taking pictures and getting pictures of the criminals and identifying these criminals and keeping record of their criminal activity. And you can find out more about it at Coos County Neighborhood Watch. And of course, this Wednesday, you got to check out the Coos County Citizen Council. The Citizen Council. It's ran by my good friend Chris Castleman. I've been on his podcast. This is good stuff. If you want to find out, very similar to my show, very similar stuff, but it's done by another person. And maybe you like Chris Castleman more than you like listening to me because he makes a lot more sense. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a crazy raving maniac. Either way, doesn't matter. We both got really good podcasts, and we like to utilize each other's materials because we think that a lot of people need to know about this information. But this Wednesday, they're going to have a part 2 to the lakeside encampments. And I wish I would have gone out there with them because that would have been quite entertaining. I would have loved that. But we always have quite the adventure when we go on these things. But I'm glad he's filming it, and I'm glad he's out there. And I recommend you join the Coos County Citizen Council and check out this live stream that's happening Wednesday at 6 o'clock. What else? Do I have anything else here? Nope, that was it. All right. That looks like all I'm going to be talking about. Let's see. Oh, no, don't want that. Let's see. I got a comment. I got one comment. Oh, here's Joseph. If Sal Carruthers asks people to boycott anything, he will help them increase their customer base. That's kind of what I figured. That's, most people wouldn't go on the air and talk about people boycotting their sponsors unless the boycott was going to benefit their sponsors. So that's why I talked about it. And I'm sure Matt Holman is just laughing about this when he sees this. He's going to laugh about this. He sent me the notice about Sal Carruthers boycotting him, and we got a good chuckle about it. I mean, really, really, you're going to take the word of a registered sex offender over a good conservative man, a veteran-owned business, a family that's been in Coos County for a long time, helping out their fellow mankind here in Coos County, doing beautiful stuff. And yeah, Sal Carruthers, you're a freaking joke, man. You are a freaking joke. Well, I got to get out of here. I got to get to the coach house. So let's see. Let me throw the music on. All right. I hope to have Tom DeWeese on here in the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to start interviewing the candidates who are running in the special elections in May, happens May 20th. But I'm going to get some of those candidates on here. We're going to talk to them. Ought to be really cool to do. And we'll have a Friday night rant this Friday. I think we're going to have a lot to rant about. I hope you join us. And until next time, folks, carry on, Coos County. Carry on.
Yeah.